Hegseth is obviously all in on this war in Iran. He's made that extremely clear over the past few days, and why else would he preemptively change his official title to Secretary of War if he wasn't going to act like one? Obviously, there are many people responsible for the mess that we're in, including the president himself, who may have brought us into another conflict in the Middle East as a distraction from the Epstein files, or just simply because he was being dog-walked into it by Benjamin Netanyahu.
Umberville did a video on this exact subject where he talked about how when scandal comes around presidents, or when there's any type of scandal around presidents, it's just so funny how they suddenly feel the need to get into a war, or impose a new law, or sign a new bill, whatever they need to do to distract from like anything that might, any scandal that they might be into. They might either sign a law that they've been discussing for years, or they'll start a war. And yeah, watch. If I can link that video here, I will. But Umberville made a good video about how, in general, when presidents have some level of scandal, they always, like without fail, end up like obfuscating it somehow.
Hegseth has his own reasons for being totally amped up about this operation, though. Not only because sending other people's kids to die overseas is just about the most masculine thing that anyone could do, but because he's had his own share of scandals in recent months, which include potential war crimes that could, theoretically, land him behind bars one day.
Yeah, in a just world where these rules are actually properly enforced, you would expect that this man would be put away for a very long time.
Yeah.
And we already know about the leaked signal chats and the repeated bombings of alleged drug boats, which killed dozens of people, and probably a lot of people who aren't involved in the drug trade. But if there's one thing members of this administration do better than killing people, it's committing the exact kind of waste, fraud, and abuse that they claimed to be so vehemently against. And it looks like Pete Hegseth decided to go on a multi-billion-dollar spending spree to close out the last fiscal year in order to use up the entire budget in time to avoid future cuts.
What? The stated goals that they said they were actually trying to prevent were actually something that they ended up doing themselves? Who would have guessed? Honestly, this whole administration has been about conflict of interest, insider trading, perjury. The amount of times they lie under oath is insane. And fraud. Like I said, they were so concerned about fraud, but like Trump has pardoned like 10 people who have been committed of actual fraud. He doesn't care about fraud. He only cares about fraud if it's the other side, but he does not care about fraud.
Cuts.
It's like the episode of The Office where they have money to spend, they gotta buy the copier or whatever it is, otherwise the budget gets reduced next year.
Yeah, you gotta use your vacation days. They don't roll over.
Yeah.
Now, surely members of this administration wouldn't be dumb enough to spend an ungodly amount of taxpayer money on frivolous, self-serving bullshit, right? No, of course, wrong. He spent it on, like, pianos and crab legs and
all that kind of
other
stuff.
such things, baby. Real blue-collar, salt-of-the-earth, manly shit.
Yep.
Ooh-rah. Here's the New Republic on this infuriating use of public funds.
The Pentagon spent more money in September, the end of the 2025 fiscal year, than it had in any other year since 2008.
But we couldn't possibly lower healthcare. That's way too expensive. We have other priorities, like, spending money on crab legs. Mind you, these are the same people that say, hey, a person on Snap should never get to enjoy steak because that's an expensive meal, so you should have to struggle to buy anything, any type of food for enjoyment. You should have to barely eat crumbs and work harder. Hey, people on Snap don't, it's not that they don't work hard, it's that the job that they have don't pay the bills for the area that they live in, because unfortunately a lot of politicians don't believe in raising wages, so a lot of people don't get paid well enough to even survive. Crazy notion. It's almost as if you work at a job that doesn't pay enough money. It's almost as if you can't pay your bills. What a crazy notion. Anyways, I'm gonna let them continue.
But a good chunk of the budget wasn't used for anything that could be considered a pertinent military expense. The Defense Department burned through $93 billion that month alone, signing checks left and right in order to dry up its congressionally allocated budget, according to a recent analysis by the government watchdog Open the Books. Some of the frivolous September purchases made under Secretary Pete Hegseth's stewardship include a $98,329 Steinway & Sons grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's home,
I didn't even know they made pianos that expensive.
$5.3 million for Apple devices such as the new iPad, and an astronomical amount of shellfish, including $2 million for Alaskan king crab and $6.9 million worth of lobster tail. Lobster tail is apparently a favorite of Hegseth's Pentagon. The department spent more than $7.4 million total on the luxury item in March, May, June, and October. In other pricey food purchases, the government decided to drop $15.1 million for ribeye steak, again, just in September, $124,000 for ice cream machines, and $139,224 on 272 orders of donuts.
How big were these orders?
That's a big Pentagon, baby.
Wow.
And look, I don't want them eating gruel, but lobster tail, king crab, Steinway pianos,
Yeah, it's a bit much.
I would say
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
go for a different
Shrimp.
cut.
Get some shrimp.
Maybe some London broil instead of that T-bone
Yeah.
steak.
Yeah, get yourself a brisket. You can take a cheap brisket and make it taste like the best meat you've ever had with just a little elbow grease.
They, of course, also, after all of that egregious spending, the pianos and the lobster tails and whatnot, the outlet ads, weeks later, millions of Americans would lose their SNAP benefits amid the longest government shutdown in U.S. history so far. Longest government shutdown in U.S. history so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in a far less consequential but equally stupid bit of news about Pete Hegseth, he's apparently really upset that photographers are taking unflattering photographs of him. So he has made the very adult decision to just straight up ban photographers from press briefing.
I'm going to show you a bit of information that makes this fact so much more infuriating because they already had a conversation about press briefings.
Continues. But what I will say is, putting all the infighting about the war aside, Republicans, they can at least come together over their shared hatred for journalists. Because the Secretary of War, some call him the Secretary of War Crimes, he's targeting photographers who just dare to take bad photos of him. With the Defense Department reportedly banning press photographers from all future press briefings about the war that's not a war in Iran because, wait for it, they published photos of Pete Hegseth that were deemed unflattering. Now, the briefing that this whole thing was born from happened on March 2nd, just days after the joint military strike that killed Iran's former supreme leader. And it was actually the first time that Hegseth appeared from the briefing room podium since June of last year. But anyway, for this briefing, the Pentagon welcomed a bunch of photographers from various sources: Bloomberg, the AP, Getty Images, Reuters, and a bunch more. And so they snapped away, and afterwards, those pictures were published in outlets around the world. But then, members of Hegseth's team reportedly told colleagues that they didn't like the way that the secretary looked. And so, they took the only reasonable option, and they blocked press photographers from the next two briefings on March 4th and March 10th. Only the Defense Department staff photographers were welcome at those. And you had the Pentagon press secretary, Kingsley Wilson, saying in a statement, "In order to use space in the Pentagon briefing room effectively, we are allowing one representative per news outlet if uncredentialed, excluding pool. And adding photographs from the briefings are immediately released online for the public and press to use. If that hurts the business model for certain news outlets, then they should consider applying for a Pentagon press credential." Which, of course, is a slap in the face at the outlets that surrendered their Pentagon credentials and walked out after refusing to sign a policy prohibiting journalists from soliciting any information that the government doesn't expressly approve.
So imagine you submitting your credentials to get approved to even be in the Pentagon, only to be told that because you took pictures of the Secretary of Defense, that you're no longer allowed to be there because they found your pictures unflattering. Just because he's insecure about his looks because his friends told him he looked bad. And you're going to hear about that in Internet Today's episode. But the idea alone that they have submitted their credentials when they've already been told that they're not allowed to release certain information without it being audited first, and then it gets audited, and then they can release it. But now they're being told that they can't even take pictures because the Secretary of Defense feels slightly insecure, not pretty enough some days. What in the world? Look, Pete. There are days we don't look pretty. That doesn't mean you're allowed to not let journalists do journalism because you don't look pretty some days. Put on some exfoliator and put on some makeup and look good. Hey, Trump wears makeup, okay? For the guys who are out there like makeup is not a thing for dudes, Trump wears makeup. He is always trying to look presentable, so he will do whatever he needs to do to look presentable. And he wears makeup. You can tell because he smears it all over his hand so no one sees his bruise and such. And his neck, he wears makeup. Pete, if you don't look your best, put some makeup on. No one's gonna notice or care, okay? But that doesn't give you the right to kick journalists out because you're feeling insecure some days. We all know you have a lot of money, so you have enough to spend on beauty products to look good. But please don't. And I'm gonna ask you personally, it doesn't make sense to not uphold the law because you're insecure some days. But that's what's literally happening. Pete really said, my eyebrows weren't on fleek today, so no more pictures. Like, that's why.
So punishing journalists for trying to do journalism. But with this new development, press rights advocates, they weren't exactly pleased with the development. The National Press Photographers Association condemned the decision, calling on the Pentagon to restore the photographers' access. And you had the president saying in a statement, excluding photographers from Pentagon briefings because officials did not like how published images portrayed them shows an astonishingly poor sense of priorities in the midst of a war and is for a public servant, not a good look. A free press cannot function if government officials decide that only favorable images of public officials may be created or distributed. You had Charles Statlander, a spokesperson for the New York Times, echoing that, saying, as the Times has long said, there is a clear importance in public service to allowing journalists to report fully on the U.S. military. This includes photojournalists who deserve access and credentialing to attend Pentagon briefings. But instead of pushing the Pentagon to allow photographers to do their jobs, the White House is
You can become way more accurate safely without having to spend time or money going to the range.
Yeah, man, I hate the cold, man. It's just so uncomfortable, man. I mean, don't you hate the cold? I mean, I hate when I am chilly. I hate when I get a brain freeze. I hate when I feel so cold. I hate when I get a brain freeze. So, you know what I say? You know what I say? I say, fuck ice. I don't want to be cold. I don't like it at all. Cause I don't think that is nice at all. I don't think it's good to have cold on my soul. I want to be warm. I don't like being cold. I don't like being cold. Oh, no, 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 no. I say, fuck ice. Fuck ice. I say, fuck ice. Fuck ice. I had some ice cream the other day. It gave me a brain freeze and I didn't like that thing. So I don't like that thing. So I threw down the ice cream and got a sledgehammer and beat that thing and burnt that thing. I don't like ice making me have a brain freeze. No, no, I don't like that. No, no, no. Matter of fact, I don't like mint at all because it feels like my breath is so icy. No, I don't wanna mess around with ice. Ice is not nice. Yeah, it makes my drinks cold, but I don't like them nice, right? I'm just talking about ice. Just normal ice. Like, I don't like things being cold and don't like things being chill. Speaking of the government, I don't think it's very chill that they're taking immigrants away. I don't think that they should kill people trying to take immigrants away. Why are you trying to kill people and not treating people equal? Why are you being so evil? And why are you embracing Nazi in Germany? Talking points, you said you're not a Nazi, but you're promoting the things of Nazis. So you're doing the same thing and saying the same points that they believe in, and you're saying that you don't believe that point. But I am just saying I don't like ice. I don't like ice because it's too cold. It's like not cold. It's not warm enough, right? I wish it was a little hotter out. We need to let the ice melt and let the thing go down because I don't like the fact that it's cold right now. I'd rather have it be summer and not cold right now because, yeah, I don't like being cold. It's winter time, so I don't like it being cold right now. It is a crime. Wait a minute, the people who actually are committing crimes are the people with the mask, but I'm not talking about them. I say fuck ice. Fuck ice. No, it's not nice. Actually, you change things because you aren't doing right. Wait a minute, you aren't following the law. You aren't doing right. But I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about the cold, right? Fuck ice. Fuck ice. That's why I say fuck ice. Fuck ice. That's why I just say fuck ice. Fuck ice. That's why I just say fuck ice. Fuck ice. Okay, let me talk to the people directly. The masked heathens and the criminals out there beating up the immigrants and saying that it's okay, bro, like it's a good thing. And beating up people and taking out mothers and abuelas and taking up children and saying it's okay that they can just beat up these people and not actually have any morals. Being immoral people to all the people they're talking to and they're dealing with because they think they're all criminals, but they're not doing anything to hurt you. But you're coming out with pepper spray and pointing a gun in their face and running cars into their I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh, I know what I'm trying to say. You're running cars into their car while they have children in there. What is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? Are you insane? I don't think you understand what you're doing right? You're breaking the law and you're not treating people like with decency. You're treating them not like they're not humanity. These aren't humans to you. You have dehumanized them to the point where you feel like you can just dehumanize them at any point because they're not human. They're not human. They're criminals. They're been here illegally. You say that's equal to someone who's a drug dealer or a killer, but you're the one pulling out guns on them and spraying them and hurting them and abusing them. But you don't actually want to treat them like a person, and you're not treating them like a human being. You're treating them, well, indecent, and you're not treating them like a human being. You're doing things that aren't very equal to treat them like a human being. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's an evil thing. I think you're an evil being. You're doing evil things, not to a person. Yeah, so I don't like you. I don't actually agree with you. Everything that you're doing is you're attacking immigrants and you're just doing what you want to these people that you dehumanize to a point where it's so easy for you to do this because you do this what you want to. So fuck ICE.
Chosen a more combative response to the whole situation. In the Washington Post article that initially broke this story, journalist Scott Nover wrote, White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly declined to comment on Hegseth's decision to shut out reporters. But then Kelly herself pushed back on that, saying on Twitter, fake news reporter Scott Nover said we declined to comment for this story. Not true. He just didn't like my comment because it exposes how little the Washington Post cares about access for photographers. Fake outrage. With her sharing a photo of an email thread that appears to be her responding to Nover's request for comment with, quote, didn't the Washington Post just fire all of its White House photographers? Which actually is true. Just last month, the Washington Post laid off about 30% of all its employees. And that included 300 journalists and all of their staff photographers. And so you've seen some right-leaning outlets jumping on that fact to claim that the Post is just trying to stir up drama and outrage against Hegseth, the Pentagon, and the Trump administration. But there you had people pushing back, noting that the Post article reporting on the photographer ban didn't mention anything about their own staff getting shut out. Rather, citing their sources about the decision to ban photographers and the reason for it, with people saying this is just what a news outlet does. And in fact, you had a lot of people responding to Kelly's tweet saying just that, including from Dan Lamothe, a military affairs reporter for the Post, who said, whether we have 0 photographers or 72 photographers, this story about the Pentagon is still true. But then,
I want to see these pictures.
Well, I think we've seen them. He
looks like Pete Hegseth. I don't know
what
he's
he
talking
thinks
about.
that. Yeah, it's weird. You look like the human version of Roger Klotz.
I think it's really cool how image conscious men have become. We all the things that all of the neuroses that society gave women over the last several hundred years. It's cool that men now we didn't get rid of those neuroses. We just made sure that everyone could have them. And now guys like Pete Hegseth, who, like, admittedly, handsome guy, seems to be in good shape.
Sure.
He just has
Can't stand the sight of himself.
He has body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
He can't even see his own picture in the newspaper without his cortisol levels spiking.
No, my cortisol.
But yeah, so banning the photographer seems like a pretty good reason to get rid of any photographic record of these and future briefings specifically related to Iran.
Yeah, no, I'm totally
Yeah.
doing it because you guys make me look bad and not for any other reason.
I mean, what about the audio? Is he self-conscious about his voice too?
They should pitch it up a little bit.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step.
Yeah, what if his voice cracks? Now, for their part, the Pentagon has denied these reports, but it definitely sounds like a request that would come from an administration that's clearly obsessed with appearances. Here's the Washington Post. The Defense Department has barred press photographers from briefings on the ongoing U.S.-Israeli military conflict with Iran after they published photos of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth that his staff deemed unflattering, according to 2 people familiar with the decision who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retaliation. After the photographers published photos, which have broad reach because they are licensed by publications globally, members of Hegseth's staff told colleagues that they did not like the way that the secretary looked. Hegseth's aides decided to shut out photographers from the 2 subsequent briefings at the Pentagon on March 4th and March 10th, according to 2 people familiar with the decision.
In a statement, Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson wrote, in order to use space in the Pentagon briefing room effectively, we are allowing 1 representative per news outlet if uncredentialed, excluding pool. Photographs from the briefings are immediately released online for the public and press to use. If that hurts the business model for certain news outlets, then they should consider applying for a Pentagon press credential. The National Press Photographers Association, NPPA, which advocates for photographers' rights, condemned the Defense Department's decision in a statement after this article was published and called upon the Pentagon to restore access to banned photographers. The group also said retaliation against photographers raises fresh First Amendment concerns. Excluding photographers from Pentagon briefings because officials did not like how published images portrayed them shows an
Freestyle the news! And they come for him. That's the real lesson here, Alex.
Blast off, shooting on the bomb like a mascot. Oil in the war like a jackpot. Waving on the flag, kill 100, get it back, pull a trigger, you can laugh off. Everybody on the block getting laid off. Everybody at the top looking made off. Chrissy fired by the job like a stray dog. Why is Jim Carrey looking odd as a face off? God forbid it, it's outrageous. Spot the villain, he got paper. Talk committed, you look gangster. All these bitches with no answer. Lay out bodies, a new cancer. No more service, no more champions. Too much oil and move backwards. Too many robot and no standard. You got info, we want that shit. Bet on missile, we got Kalshi. Pay me out. Someone tell me where the fuck is Congress? Old motherfuckers who just cashing constant. Staying on Bob while the madmen bomb shit. Protect the children, get your age description. When your name get filled in so the text can bid with all the cash we give them, all the ads get slipped in. You can ask the Clintons or the rats in business or the party princes and you won't get shit. Funny money wanna get us divided, or just fire off a missile with another AI bitch. I'm just trying to be free like the king of the pirates, but they're blocking off the seed like they're spreading a virus. So whatever your ISIS or your bullshit source, suddenly you care about women's sports. Stuck inside an era where it's just hot takes, like a new ballet starring Tim Chalamet. Like what? Oof! Too soon? It's a dying art form.
Timothy Chalamet is going to be fine in the long run. The biggest thing this has really done has given ballet and opera a thing to stitch, to show off, a sound to use, that sound can go viral.
Shows an astonishingly poor sense of priorities in the midst of a war and is, for a public servant, not a good look, NPPA President Alex Garcia said. A free press cannot function if government officials decide that only favorable images of public officials may be created or distributed.
Yeah, this is weird, and it's coming off as a little insecure, guys.
It also comes across as being willing to hide things and seeing what you can get away with, who you can ban from these briefings, because there's always a test shot to see what can happen.
Didn't they already do that thing where they made like everyone sign a loyalty oath or something?
And then they got a bunch of right-wing podcasters in there and they all took pictures at the same Washington Post desk.
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about with the Pentagon Press Association, is like if you're an official member of the Pentagon Press Association.
Which is like Newsmax?
You have to sign this like insane loyalty oath where it's like even if they basically they have to sign off on anything you publish.
Or you lose access.
Even if it's something they said out loud to you, they can revoke your right to publish it afterwards, which every news outlet was like, no, it's not how it works. But yeah, Pete Hegseth sounds like a really fun person to work with.
Yeah, you could get an axe thrown at you on accident.
And look, if you're at the Department of Defense and want to get away for a while, you might be in luck here, as long as you don't mind doing some pretty morally reprehensible work, because Pete Hegseth is now pressuring members of the DoD to volunteer and assist with the president's immigration crackdown. Here's Wired. In a February 19th memo sent to civilians across the DoD, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth wrote that he expects every supervisor to encourage their civilian employees to volunteer. Leadership must continue to promote this detail program and educate their civilian employees on its importance. The memo, which was titled Department of War, Guidance to Encourage Support to the Department of Homeland Security, Southern Border and Internal Immigration Enforcement Missions, was sent to thousands of civilian DoD employees.
Well, now we know why they use acronyms. That's a mouthful, that initiative. Very long name.
Also, they just dead named the DOD. They called it the DOD.
Yeah, that's what is so annoying about all this, too, because every serious outlet keeps calling it the Department of Defense, but Pete Hegseth, and even some of Trump's cabinet, keep calling it the Department of Defense, and him the Secretary of Defense.
It's very weird, because all they'd have...
And he says Department of War, Secretary of War.
Because, yeah, it still is officially called the Department of Defense. All they'd have to do is get Congress to approve the name change. It's weird they haven't.
Well, and it's causing problems right now because there's been a couple interviews where, they do the back and forth about whether or not this is a war, and it's very easy for them to point at Pete Hegseth and just be like, well, what's up with this then?
Yeah.
This guy seems pretty fucking amped about it.
Also the name.
Yeah.
Department of War.
So this article continues. The instructions follow a June 2025 memo in which Hegseth authorized civilian employees to be detailed to DHS. But an Army civilian employee who spoke to Wired on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation says that there is definitely more pressure now, at least on the supervisory chain. I received the obligatory announcement email with the first memo when it came out, and no one has talked about it at all. So much so that I had forgotten about it entirely, says the Army civilian employee. I don't know anyone who has taken the job. The employee noted that as part of the Trump administration's efforts to cut back on government jobs in the name of efficiency, Hegseth has sought to cut the department's workforce. I have taken up the duties of 3 departed colleagues on top of the job I was hired for as a result, they say.
Morale has never been higher.
The employee described this kind of request to volunteer for another federal agency as very not common. It's not like the Defense Department has any spare time at the moment either. Hegseth and DoD leadership are currently engaged in directing the U.S.'s role in conflict with Iran.
Yeah, I feel like if you're running the DoD during a literal war, kind of the hottest war we've had in over a decade, probably not the best time to be making all of your civilian contractors and civilian employees
take on more work.
Multitask.
In addition to firing a bunch
mission.
of people. Yeah, this is the Department of Defense version of a lean startup. This is outrageous.
Yeah. But this is also something that happens a lot in fascist regimes.
Yeah, and so does the banning the press from making you look bad, making you appear ugly or mean or something that they don't want to represent. So seeing a lot of similarities here.
Yeah, well, now we have to talk about that ongoing war in Iran. We've reached that part of the show. And despite Trump insisting multiple times that he either doesn't know about any bomb hitting a girls' elementary school or that he does know about it, but he's convinced that Iran bombed its own girls' elementary school.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
Turns out, yeah. If our leaders had the ability to feel shame, they would be puking their guts out and inconsolable over the fact that, yeah, based on a preliminary inquiry, it was most definitely the United States who bombed that elementary school and killed 175 people, many of them children. And now the president has conveniently gone back to just not knowing anything about it.
As Commander-in-Chief, do you take responsibility for that?
That is what?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
Here's the New York Times with more on this and the official U.S. statement, which appears to be, bad data. Fucking monsters.
Yeah.
The February 28th strike on the Shajara Tayyebe Elementary School building was the result of a targeting mistake by the U.S. military, which was conducting strikes on an adjacent Iranian base, of which the school building was formerly a part, the preliminary investigation found. Officers at U.S. Central Command created the target coordinates for the strike using outdated data provided by the Defense Intelligence Agency. People briefed on the investigation said.
Officials emphasized that the findings are preliminary and that there are important unanswered questions about why the outdated information had not been double-checked. Striking a school full of children is sure to be recorded as one of the most devastating single military errors in recent decades. Iranian officials have said the death toll was at least 175 people, most of them children. While the overall finding was largely expected, the United States is the only country involved in the conflict that uses Tomahawk missiles. It has already cast a shadow on the U.S. military operation in Iran. And that's crazy because a majority of people, even Republicans, were and still are against this war. So the idea that this little fucking oopsie is what has cast a shadow on the operation, that's insane to me.
Everything was going so well, except for this.
The first fucking thing we did, essentially. This was like one of the first things that happened in this conflict.
Yeah, it's what, I mean, at least on West Coast time, I woke up and I was like, okay, where were the run? Okay, we bombed a school.
Yeah.
That's like the first thing I learned about it.
And I just want to point out that it is very fucking bizarre to know that there are actual conservatives who really did finally break from Trump over all of the Epstein stuff and the exploitation of children and are somehow not just completely outraged and screaming for impeachment over the fact that this administration just killed over 100 children in a single airstrike. And that's not meant to diminish the Epstein victims in any way. These are completely different, horrific, unimaginable scenarios that just so happen to involve some of the same people. I'm just trying to desperately figure out where this country's line of morality actually is.
Yeah, they care about children in very specific, particular ways.
Like with abortion and then a child that would need some kind of welfare system. There's
the whole element that we see this a lot with like the ICE stuff where they're doing horrible shit all the time. People are dying a lot in the facilities, but it only matters once it's like a U.S. citizen, as if that distinction makes someone more of a human being.
There was reports recently of one of the detention centers, the guards punishing young children because they lost one of their like foil blankets. So they took all of them away and had them sleeping on concrete in the cold.
Yeah, it's
and there was a lice outbreak too, and they had like one of the combs went missing, so they were disciplined over it.
Yeah, it's barbaric. It is literally, it's Nazi shit. The Nazis, they wanted the lice to break out. Because
people pointed out that Anne Frank didn't die in the gas chamber. She died of exposure to disease. And yeah, it's not exactly the healthiest place to be. But we're veering off topic into domestic issues when we have a war that's going on as well. There's too much happening. There's been too much happening.
I started seeing billboards around. I mean, this is like
I've seen some anti-ICE billboards.
Obviously, LA and California, but I mean, people maybe think LA and California are more progressive than they actually are. But yeah, billboards that really just like hammer home specifically on the cost, where they're just like, here's what ICE spent this money on.
Yep.
Here's what was taken away from you in exchange for that.
Yeah, there's one that I saw that calculates the numbers on healthcare coverage.
Yeah, that's what.
It should be infuriating to people.
Yeah.
And for what?
Even if you like, and yeah, people are fucking weird about immigration just as an issue. But I mean, it's like even if you are maybe in support of the vague idea of what ICE is doing, like the fact that it's costing so much fucking money at the expense of
when you're a fiscal conservative,
stuff,
that would be something that you would think change your mind about it.
Anyway, back to Iran. So yeah, if you had any questions about the competency of our military after bombing a school, you would be thrilled to know that there's been a new appointment to a key advisory board for the United States Air Force Naval Academy. And all we can say is thank God we got rid of DEI, because how else would we end up with someone as qualified as Erica Kirk?
Alright, so two things. One, I realized that I actually enjoy listening to it at one-fifth speed. And two, this is a lot of footage, so I'm just going to listen to it at one-fifth speed because there's a lot of editing and clipping and putting this all together. So yeah, I'm just going to do that for my own sake, so I'm not going to be here as long. So I apologize in advance for sound text and fast forward. I hope you guys enjoy listening to it at one-fifth speed.
I want to show you all one of the funniest videos I have ever seen. One of Elon Musk's Doge goons got caught on camera not being able to define DEI. He doesn't know what it is. He doesn't even know what the acronym is, yet he was the one that was tasked by Elon Musk with purging all DEI from our government, despite not knowing what it is at all. This comes on the same day that a new whistleblower complaint was filed against Doge, alleging that this man on screen, who doesn't know what DEI is, along with Elon Musk and the rest of their Doge goons, it alleges that they stole data from the Social Security Administration that could help sway elections, that could help make Elon Musk data from the Social Security Administration that could help sway elections, that could help make Elon Musk profits, that will expose hundreds of millions of Americans in a way that we shouldn't be exposed, all because these Doge goons couldn't control themselves and got high off of their unfettered executive power that Elon Musk was given. If you've been following the Atomocra feed for, I guess, a year now, when we were talking about the Elon Musk stuff back in February or March of 2025, as it was going on, we called all of this out. We said they are clearly stealing our data. They clearly don't even know how to define the words that they're trying to attack. And most of all, we kind of knew that Elon Musk was high off his ass the entire time. Now, I didn't know it was ketamine at the time, but then an article came out after saying that Elon Musk was high on ketamine and multiple other drugs throughout his entire White House tenure, and that he even had bad bladder issues due to his drug abuse problem. But I digress. That's a separate conversation. Let's return back to Justin Fox. That is the man on screen now, the young Doge bro who was tasked with flagging all grants for DEI. But the way they did this is comical. So Justin Fox and Nate Kavanaugh, two Doge staffers who, I mean, look to be about my age. I'm 23 and this guy looks no older than me. They were tasked, with asking ChatGPT if a certain grant was considered DEI. So what they would insert is only use 120 characters, respond factually, and say yes or no at the beginning. Then they would enter the information about a certain grant or a certain institution into Doge, and if Doge said that it was DEI, then they would cut it. They would cut that grant just using ChatGPT, not even modern day ChatGPT, not even Claude, not even Gemini, not the good new models, but ChatGPT from a year ago, from February of 2025. Not that anything would make it okay, I'm just joking here, but this is absolutely disgusting and despicable. To make matters even worse, when the same Justin Fox, this man on screen, gets asked in an interview, what does DEI mean? He can't answer. He gets asked, okay, what does it mean to you? Just tell us your definition. He has no answer. The biggest question is, what's the acronym of DEI? He doesn't know how to answer it. It's diversity, equity, inclusion. It should be so incredibly simple to explain, especially if you're somebody who was dedicated, like your young life, your youth, to attacking DEI. You don't even know how to define it. That's like if I attacked authoritarianism all the time, and I didn't even know how to define authoritarianism. Of course, I can very simply explain what the concentration of power and oppressing of your enemies looks like as a leader. That is authoritarianism. But this guy can't defend what he's spent his youth fighting against. So, if you appreciate these videos, make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed. We are nearing 2 million subscribers, and that's because of you all. So I want to thank every single one of you. Genuinely, we are pushing towards a better America, and I couldn't do it without you all. So let's start off with the Doge Bro, and then we'll go on to the Social Security Administration.
If you get stuck on a melody, or if you just feel like you can't get a song started, Output's co-producer is very dope. They make it.
Oh, and then we'll go on to the Social Security Administration.
How do you interpret DEI? There was the EO explicitly laid out the details. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'm asking for your understanding of it. Yeah, my understanding was exactly what was written in the EO. Okay, so can you, I don't remember what was in the EO. So right now, do you have an understanding of what DEI is? Yeah. Okay, so what's your understanding as you sit here today in this deposition? Well, it was exactly what was written in the EO. And so anytime that we would look at a grant through the lens of complying with executive order, we would just refer back to the EO and assess if this grant had relation to it. Okay, but I guess I'm stepping back from your methodology strictly in terminating the grants. Do you have an understanding as you sit here today of what DEI means? Yeah. Okay, so what's your understanding of what it means? Well, it is exactly what was written in the EO. Okay, so why is a documentary about Holocaust survivors DEI? Protection. It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory too.
I forgot to mention this part. There was a Holocaust survivor documentary about women's slave labor during the Holocaust that was struck down, that the grant was struck down entirely because they said it was DEI. Let's see how he answers for this one.
It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory to focus on this specific group.
It's discriminatory to focus on Jewish women who were forced to do slave labor before they were murdered in the Holocaust? How is that discriminatory? To who? Who is that discriminatory towards? Hitler? But, I mean, this reminds me of the SpongeBob meme. I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but they're like, aren't you Patrick Star? Yep. And this is your ID? Yep. And I found this ID in this wallet, so this must be your wallet. He's like, that makes sense to me. Then take your wallet. He's like, nope, it's not my wallet. For any of the SpongeBob watchers, you'll get it. But genuinely, that's what's going on here.
It's inherently discriminatory to focus on one specific group. The gender-based, so females during the Holocaust. And you believe that that's inherently discriminatory? I'm just saying that's what it's focused on.
Is this guy high on fucking horse tranquilizer? Like, Jesus Christ. You guys are probably sitting there thinking, thank God, I don't have to listen to that guy speak all day. You at least get to listen to somebody who knows how to articulate things. God damn.
Sure. But this is related to DEI, right? But you just used the term inherently discriminatory. What did you mean by that? It's focusing on DEI principles, gender being one of them. So a documentary that's about women would be DEI. Gotcha. Is that fair to say? No. Okay. So tell me why what I just said isn't DEI, but what you just said is DEI. Gotcha. It's specifically focused on Jewish cultures and amplifying the marginalized voices of the females in that culture. It's inherently related to DEI for those reasons.
Okay, I need a palate cleanser after all of that. The real definition of DEI, as defined by Walden University, says it's a framework designed to ensure fair treatment and full participation of all people, particularly those from underrepresented groups. So it makes sure that if you're an underrepresented group, you actually have a shot to reach your full potential in a country that is supposed to be about reaching your full potential. These Doge goons, staffers, don't care about that. They don't care about American ideals. They have no actual principles behind their dead eyes. Like, look at this guy's dead eyes. I hate to be mean to someone that's like my age, but this guy stole a bunch of Social Security Administration data, then goes on camera, doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about regarding DEI, and is barely even able to articulate words out of his mouth. It honestly just made me feel like I was slower. But let's go back to this. And this breaking news story is coming from the Washington Post. The Washington Post reports a whistleblower claims ex-Doge member says he took Social Security data to new job. But let's read the summary. A whistleblower alleges a former Doge engineer walked out of the Social Security Administration with a thumb drive containing 2 of the most sensitive databases in the US government and planned to share them with his private employer. This person needs to go to prison for life. Elon Musk needs to have his ass on a seat right when Democrats take power, and we need to be asking him about what happened in Doge. I cannot wait for the Doge testimonies. Those are going to be great. The Doge trials, rather. The databases known as Nubident and the Master Death File contain records on more than 500 million living and dead Americans, including Social Security numbers, places and dates of birth, citizenship status, race, ethnicity, parents' names. According to the complaint, he told coworkers he needed help sanitizing the data before uploading it to his new company's systems. When a colleague refused on legal grounds, he said he expected a presidential pardon if his actions were found to be legal. I do want to clarify, the person that we're talking about here is not the same as Justin Fox, the person that I was showing in the video. These are 2 separate Doge staffers, both of them equally as dumb. According to the complaint, he told coworkers he needed help sanitizing the data, but they refused. He allegedly described his access as, quote, God level, and with clearance no outside contractor has ever been granted at the Social Security Administration. This is like Elon Musk verbiage. I have God-level clearance here. The SSA's Inspector General is now investigating. Congress has been alerted. The GAO is conducting a parallel government-wide audit of Doge's data access. This comes on top of separate, acknowledged DOJ breaches. DOJ confirmed breaches. Doge members shared SSA data through unapproved channels and with a political group attempting to overturn the results of the election in multiple states. To make matters even worse, we also have reporting that the ex-Doge employee who walked off with a thumb drive of Social Security data and took it to a private company, this guy told a whistleblower that he, quote, expected a presidential pardon if his actions were deemed illegal. If that isn't a window into the Trump administration, says Carly, I don't know what is. Not only a window into the Trump administration, but a window into the signal that Donald Trump sends his followers. When he pardoned 1,600 people on January 21st of 2025, right when he got into office, when he pardoned all of the J6ers, he was sending a signal to his base that if you commit crimes for me, if you do things for me, I will pardon all of you. And that is a signal that this Doge employee clearly took. That is a signal that people like Elon Musk clearly took from it, because they all committed a bunch of crimes and thought they would get away with it, but are now getting caught. Even beyond the crimes that will hurt all of our Social Security information, they also committed the crime of just being idiots, like this guy right here. I'm gonna leave it there. If you appreciate these videos, drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.
A VPN. Get those fireworks going, everyone. We're in good hands. Yes, you heard that correctly. Erica Kirk, the wife of former podcaster and Turning Point USA co-founder Charlie Kirk, has been given an advisory role in the military for some reason. And by the way, this has been a sore subject for a lot of people, including veterans, since the beginning of the war with Iran. But there hasn't been a federal directive to lower the nation's flags in honor of those fallen troops. And as you'll probably recall, the Trump White House ordered flags at half-mast for his favorite podcaster, Charlie Kirk, almost immediately after he died. Also, Trump witnessed the transfer of fallen soldiers wearing a fucking baseball hat. He used it as a merch advertisement. He does not give a fuck. Back to Erica Kirk, though. What possible reason could there be for Charlie Kirk's wife to be in this position?
Well, it's actually quite simple. It's kind of like a Santa Claus type scenario. Charlie Kirk was, again, inexplicably given a role on this Air Force Advisory Board, and now he's dead. So the role has been transferred to his wife via like a blood pact or something. It's, you know, when Santa falls off the roof, you have to be Santa.
It's sort of like a lordship in the UK.
Yeah, but that begs the question, why was Charlie Kirk on this board? And it just seems like Trump filled it with sycophants who would be happy to update the curriculum and standards to something that aligns with more of Trump's bizarre vision for what American exceptionalism actually is. Like, have you seen the Turning Point USA bus that's going around? Like the museum on wheels, and it's all AI-generated presidents talking to children? There's bizarre shit happening.
I've seen Glenn Beck has like an AI George Washington that he like.
Maybe he's leasing it out to them because it's a semi-truck that you walk into. It's a mobile museum, and you press a button and they come to life and start telling you about how cool America is.
Glenn Beck has a bunch of recent videos where he has like deep conversations with robot George Washington about modern day issues. It's the stupidest fucking thing. So yeah, it's probably something like that.
George, what do you think about all the reports, the verified reports of children shitting in litter boxes in high schools? What's high school? The fuck's a litter box?
What the fuck is the internet?
The fuck is the internet?
I would just love to be a fly on the wall in these like Air Force advisory meetings where you've got like top brass dudes with so many stripes on their shoulders just sitting around a table with a bunch of
and then that
chud influencers.
Boss bitch comes in with her padded shoulders and her very big eyes.
Yeah. When she gives you the stare.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Big Kirkified.
What do they even talk about?
I'm sure they talk about the curriculum and how it needs to be very exclusively America #1 the best. I'm sure it has something to do with the Turning Point USA / that's what I was thinking. PragerU is the one that has the bus going around.
Oh, Dennis Prager has been like on death's door for like a year now too. But I was gonna say,
well, they're gonna bring him back to life with the power of AI.
Yeah, they don't. Dennis, your earthly body is no longer needed.
Nope.
Anyways, with more on this, just outrageous bullshit. Here's The Guardian. Donald Trump has appointed Erica Kirk, the widow of murdered right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, to a key advisory board of the U.S. Air Force Academy. The 37-year-old joins a number of other loyalists to the president on the 16-member panel of the Academy's Board of Visitors, which, according to its website, inquires into the morale, discipline, curriculum, instruction, physical equipment, fiscal affairs, academic methods, and other matters of the Colorado Springs Military Training Facility. We need Erica Kirk in here stat.
Yeah. I don't even know how the fuck our U.S. Air Force has operated over the past, what has it been, around a century now, without the guidance of Erica Kirk.
Like, what could... The only, like, possible... She's like, any problem they have, like, well, if someone died.
Yeah.
If someone was brutally murdered.
We'd have a really good way to market this. And
yeah.
We sell a lot of hats. Fireworks guy, if you guys need that.
Yeah, needs more fireworks. Have you thought about leather pants?
Have you thought about challenging the Ayatollah to a debate in the marketplace of ideas?
Changed my mind, Ayatollah.
It continues, there was no official announcement by the Academy of his widow's elevation, which was reported on Tuesday by The Hill and other political news outlets. But her name has already been added to the list of members as one of Trump's current 5 appointees, with 1 slot vacant.
That's Charlie's seat.
They keep it up. And that seat's for the Lord and Charlie. In a statement, White House spokesperson Olivia Wales said Erica Kirk was a perfect choice to succeed her husband. Charlie Kirk served proudly on the board, inspiring not only the next generation of service members, but millions around the world with his bold Christian faith, defense of the truth, and deep love of country, she said. Erica Kirk will continue his legacy and will be a fearless advocate for the most elite air power force in the history of the world, whose warriors keep our nation safe, strong, and free.
Listen, nothing against pilots, but you don't get to call yourself warriors. You're like all the way up there. There hasn't been a dogfight in decades.
If that's true, then maybe, but I really like the Top Guns, and I really like the old World War II.
Our drone operator, let me ask you this, is a drone operator a warrior?
Oh, right. But again,
taking a tactical sip of my Diet Coke.
Yeah,
while I
my White Monster. None of this matters. It doesn't matter what level of the military you're in. You could be a fucking general and Trump doesn't respect you. He does not give a fuck about any troops. He thinks they're stupid. And he's already indicated multiple times that troop deaths under him are a sacrifice that he is willing to make.
Yeah, very like casual and nonchalant.
Many times.
Too. Like the kind of statement where if like Joe Biden or Obama said it, you'd never hear the end of it.
Yeah, but he just keeps dropping this frequently. And maybe that's because Trump seems to think that when troops die, they can get up and walk away.
Yeah. Yeah, well...
Here is a real clip from one of Trump's recent press conferences, and I don't know, you try to make sense of it.
And all of the people that died through the roadside bombs died and are right now walking around with no legs, no arms.
Wow. Yep.
I mean, definitely a strong leader with all of his mental faculties in order and zero cognitive issues. I feel safer, don't you? Actually, no, I don't. I don't feel safe at all, actually. And we'll get to a billion reasons why in just a second, but it's that time again, folks. Got to take another, unfortunately, timed sponsor break.
This is the sponsor dance. We got to walk away from the news and walk into the sponsor.
At least today's sponsor is in the business of keeping you safe while you surf the information superhighway. Yeah.
Is that doing anything for anyone?
Yeah, he's surfing the web over here.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Surfshark. If you watch this show, you already know how much of your data is being vacuumed up at all times. Data brokers, advertisers, governments, apps you downloaded once in 2016. Everyone wants a piece of you and your data. That's why we use Surfshark. Using Surfshark is basically like putting on pants before leaving the house. You can go out without them, but you probably shouldn't. The second you connect, Surfshark encrypts your internet activity so trackers and random corporate entities can't just casually monitor what you're doing.
And it's not complicated. One account works on unlimited devices, phone, laptop, tablet, smart TV, whatever you're doom scrolling our show on, it'll work. By the way, Surfshark, they have more than 4,500 servers in over 100 locations. But our favorite tool has to be Alternative ID. It generates a brand new persona and email for you to use on sketchy sites, so you're not feeding your real info to an algorithm every time you sign up for something. It's also great for travel. Prices for flights and hotels change depending on where you're searching from, which we've talked about before. Surfshark, it lets you switch locations instantly, so you can double check. Plus, it protects you on public Wi-Fi, which, if you've ever opened your laptop in an airport, you know is basically digital roulette. We use it whenever we're traveling or working remotely because the internet is already chaotic enough. There's no need to give it extra access. So if you'd like to browse without feeling like you're in a constant data experiment, go to surfshark.com/newsday. That gets you 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, or you can just punch in code Newsday at checkout. Again, that is surfshark.com/newsday or code Newsday at checkout.
Put on your digital pants to protect your digital privates.
And start strutting.
Yeah. Okay, back to the news now. We'll eventually get to a story that's not war-related on this episode, but it's kind of a really important problem that affects the entire Earth. Since we're in California, though, let's do what Californians do best and make it all about us.
Yeah.
It appears as though there's been a threat against our state.
Why us?
On behalf of Iran.
Look, I don't want any part of the United States to be targeted by Iran. But California, we're so fucking relaxed over here.
They hate us because they ain't us.
It's really far. And like, isn't there a fucking like little like island that's all like very compressed? A bunch of billionaires all live on like one island in Florida.
Yeah. There's probably better targets.
I know.
This is obviously bullshit.
Yeah.
They do. I was just thinking about it, and there is one very good reason why Iran would want to attack California, and it's because if it weren't for sanctions against Iran, they would absolutely dominate the global pistachio trade.
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah. And some of the biggest funders of lobbyists to basically like never drop the sanctions against Iran are the big agro businesses here in California. The Wonderful company that makes those pistachios. They put a lot of money into making sure Iran never gets a chance to compete with them.
No, well, it's gonna be bomb wonderful.
But yeah, that's not. I'm overthinking it. I put more thought into this than anyone else has.
You've put more thought into that than the Trump administration has put into this war.
Yeah.
But we're threatened. Although, like, I agree that there's probably a heightened sense of, like, there's probably a lot more terrorist threats just because of the fucking actions that the Trump administration is taking.
Right.
But I also, certainly don't think that a drone is coming to strike California. And also, I don't fucking believe anything the FBI says anymore because of how they've acted.
Yeah. So, yeah, it seems like no one in a position of power thought any of this through. It's as if they thought there would be just zero pushback, retaliation, or reverberations from their actions anywhere across the globe. Nevertheless, I'm not staying up at night worrying about Iranian drones.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere near the top of my concerns.
I'm more worried about pistachios. I don't like them.
I love them. I love them. You like pistachios?
He's a little bit country. I'm a little bit rock and roll. That's why you watch the show.
Pomegranates too. Yeah, they'd probably.
Is that do pistachios take as much water as almonds or anything like that?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, Iran, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's ABC News with more on this latest threat. And first off, we really have to say how much it sucks that it's nearly impossible to trust anything that the FBI says after the past year or so, because now that we're back at war in the Middle East, the risk of attacks here is obviously going to increase.
So yeah, it'd be nice to have a competent FBI.
I mean, but like, again, it's the fucking Iraq 9/11 playbook, but like dumber, where yes, obviously the threat of terrorism
increases
was higher. Yes. But the FBI back then was also just like going in chat rooms and like basically trying to like entrap fucking teenagers. And it's like, okay, you're creating threats out of thin air.
Yeah.
And
well, it perpetuates the war machine. So
yeah, I hope they bring back the color chart.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. The terrorist threat level.
The threat level, which no one could understand. Like guys, today
and it was just always up high. It was like the fire warning in California. It never really goes the other way. And much like the cortisol level in front of the White House, they didn't have a giant cortisol sign in front of the White House.
Yeah. The threat level is orange, folks. So act accordingly.
I would not be surprised if that is right around the corner.
But yeah, here's some of their coverage about this threat.
The FBI warned police departments in California in recent days that Iran could retaliate for American attacks by launching drones at the West Coast, according to an alert reviewed by ABC News. We recently acquired information that as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California.
I thought we took out their whole Navy. I'm getting mixed messages here.
In the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran, according to the alert distributed at the end of February. We have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack. California Governor Gavin Newsom's office told ABC News, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services is actively working with state, local, and federal security officials to protect our communities. And the LA Sheriff's Department said that in light of current global events, it is maintaining an elevated level of readiness.
Oh, so before this, you weren't?
No.
You weren't ready?
No.
You were just slacking off before
No,
this?
we were beating up homeless people, you moron.
Yeah.
And you're next. Huh.
So again, Trump administration, LA Sheriff's Department, we're not exactly feeling like our best and brightest are looking out for everyone's safety, regardless of whether or not this specific threat was legitimate. Then again, simply the threat of an attack, any attack, is more than enough to scare people, boost insurance rates for large events, and potentially damage the economy. Take the Strait of Hormuz, for example.
Yep.
So Trump claimed a few days ago that he would make sure that the ships passing through the strait would be safe. He was encouraging them. He's like, be brave.
I bet you won't.
Grow a pair.
What are you, chicken?
Put on your big boy pants and go in the strait. Yeah. But he's not actually in any real position to do that without starting a larger engagement. And it doesn't matter anyway, because Iran has been placing mines there and threatening ships that try to pass.
Yeah.
And hitting a few of them. That threat is enough for global shipping insurers to pull back from coverage or increase rates to a level that is untenable, causing everything to grind to a halt regardless of whether or not there's an active attack taking place. Which, yeah, makes sense. If you got a big fucking ship and it's picking up a lot of oil from UAE or Kuwait or wherever, someone has to insure.
Yeah, it's a big liability.
Yeah, it's a big liability. If that goes down or gets damaged, that's a lot of money in the hole. And yeah, so.
And they're not moving unless they got the insurance.
So it is funny that when Trump he's like encouraging ship captains as if they have like any decision making
buddy, I'm not fucking moving.
Yeah, don't listen to your bosses back at like Merck. Just do it.
Yeah, I got you covered if you're on the hook for the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Tell them I said it was okay.
So yeah, there have been reports of some insurers refusing to cover any war risks at all. And while Lloyd's of London says that they're still offering insurance for the ships, its prices are obviously jumping. It's like getting insurance in California after the fires. Yeah, you can get it, but it's going to cost you. Meanwhile, the United States is I don't know where they're finding the money. I thought that the purse strings were tightening. I thought that there was no money left.
Well, they cut NPR and
and Big Bird.
Yeah,
and
all science, and so we have some money left.
So meanwhile, the United States is offering $20 billion of our tax money in an attempt to get more ships covered. But just because a ship can, at least currently, get insurance, doesn't mean the crew and captain are going to make that journey.
Yeah.
Fending off criticism over canceled policies and sharp price rises, Lloyd said it still provided insurance cover for hull and cargo for vessels in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, including in the Strait of Hormuz. However, last week it extended the restricted areas where clients needed to notify insurers to agree to an appropriate premium in terms of the risk. About 500 oil and gas tankers, 500 container ships, and 6 cruise ships have been trapped either side of the Hormuz Channel since Iran made it a no-go zone by threatening to attack any vessel passing through.
Worst cruise ever.
They're loving it until the booze runs out.
Yeah,
and the toilets overflow.
Toilets, yeah, the poop cruise.
Yep.
You get a poop cruise situation. Analysts at Jefferies said, it's our base case that all ships currently in the Gulf will have had their policies canceled, and almost all of these will have reinstated it at the new, much higher price. They added, it seems likely to us that the war risk insurers will have had the opportunity to specifically exclude or separately charge for certain actions such as sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. On Friday, the U.S. government announced a $20 billion reinsurance facility for hull and cargo cover, but excluding pollution cover when ships are sunk, and said it was working with U.S. insurers. Analysts have cast doubt on the effectiveness of the facility.
I love that, like, outside of this being something that's probably not going to happen or could never be backed up by any actual, like, insurer in America that would be worth their grain or worth their weight in salt, would be that just the cherry on top that the U.S. is also like, oh, but please don't cover any of the environmental catastrophe that would come from multiple oil rigs or oil ships sinking in these gulfs.
Yeah, that is, oil gets in the ocean sometimes. Get over it.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't you just fucking love your tax dollars going to patch up some bullshit that the president himself destroyed? Don't you love it?
Yeah.
We're being led by middle-aged babies who are in the midst of a tantrum, and it's dangerous for literally everyone.
Yeah, and now, like,
the monkey has the gun.
A bunch of countries, like, worldwide are opening up their oil reserves, which everyone is saying, well, okay, cool, yeah, no, it's gonna be fine. And I guess, like,
but those run out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a couple of days worth of oil production. It's a real, as you would say, boondoggle that we've gotten ourselves in on multiple fronts here.
And again, we said it before, but yeah, I mean, if anyone could have seen that this was going to happen, and it's really fucking interesting that in the year leading up to this, you would make it significantly harder for anyone to invest in renewable energy. You would actively sabotage efforts to invest in renewable energy.
And, as a nice side dish, completely dismantle global trade.
Yeah.
Through tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
And make everyone fucking angry at you for an entire year leading up to this. A moment where they could probably come and help.
It's the art of the fucking deal, baby.
Yeah. But hey, it's not just the elderly members of the Trump family who are just rubbing our faces in it. Trump's social media star granddaughter is drawing some pretty justified criticism for a recent video that she uploaded called, "I Brought My Secret Service to Erewhon." And for those who aren't aware, Erewhon is a comically overpriced grocery store where a banana actually can cost $10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never even stepped foot in one. I've been curious. Like, apparently a lot of people go there just to, like, window
Look around.
shop. Yeah. I don't even know where.
I've been in one. There's one in Pasadena. That's probably the
okay.
closest.
Yeah, I know there's
Silver Lake, they opened one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man.
There's no reason to go. It's very expensive.
Yeah, I just want to see, like, a strawberry that costs $20.
Yeah, well, their famous Haley Bieber smoothie, that alone goes for $21. So it's a lot of it's weird. It's a level of wealth and privilege that is hard to describe, especially when you factor in everything else about this Trump granddaughter's family and the current state of the country. Like, what the fuck are you doing uploading a video like this?
Yeah, it's a little tone deaf. It's a little let them eat cake.
But luckily, people are reacting very negatively to this content, which makes us feel a little bit better about the world.
It's giving Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, that is what the comments are saying. Here's local outlet KTLA with more. Kai Trump, the 18-year-old granddaughter of President Donald Trump, brought her Secret Service detail and all her YouTube followers along on a run to luxury grocery store Erewhon, sparking widespread criticism on social media. "I'm gonna need to file for bankruptcy," Trump joked in her YouTube video titled, "I Brought My Secret Service to Erewhon."
Like my grandpa did several times.
Which has garnered more than 343,000 views since it was first published on Sunday, March 8th.
Many voiced their opinions on her trip, drawing Marie Antoinette comparisons, and labeling the content as tone deaf amid rising grocery and gas costs across the U.S. and the war in Iran.
Elliot has the hive mind of the internet sitting right there on top. Like, hey, this seems pretty tone deaf.
I'm 40, but
he's locked in with
the Zoomers.
Yeah.
I kind of understand how a pre-revolution French peasant felt right now, said one YouTube commenter. Another commenter said, "Grandpa killing innocent children. Enjoy your $50 smoothie, though. I love that my taxes are funding this instead of school lunches," added another. Trump did complain in the video that everything's super expensive, while she loaded her basket up with items like sushi, a $14 bottle of water, and $16 jar of dates. "Guys, one thing about me is I don't spend, like, a lot of money," she said to the man behind the camera at one point. "Like, I don't spend a lot." So how much was her haul? The single bag of items, which included the Haley Bieber smoothie, went for a whopping $233.
One bag.
Fucking hell. It's so wild. Like, LA, there's like, we don't have like a caste system in this country, but like you could really go by like grocery stores. Like, obviously Erewhon is like the elite.
Yeah.
And below that, I think
Gelson's?
you got Gelson's.
Yeah.
Gelson's and Bristol Farms.
Yeah.
I'd put Bristol Farms slightly above Gelson's.
And then you get down and then it's Sprouts and Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And then you have your local favorites. You got your Vons, John's, Ralph's. Either way, how about a little tech news on your what's supposed to be a tech news show? Hey, we love to watch AI fail, don't we, folks?
It's like the one thing I got going right now.
Yeah, well, as more and more people start to assign their chatbots increasingly important and personal tasks, well, the more spectacular the failures are going to be. And after all, why shouldn't they trust these LLMs? The hype surrounding this tech is pretty much begging people to trust AI with every aspect of their lives. Hey, the US economy counts on it. Upload all of your documents.
We need you to do it.
And one trend that has been around since the beginning of the AI chatbot boom is just ignoring lawyers' advice and getting it all from your AI instead. What would a human being know that a computer wouldn't?
Yeah, it's not like the legal profession is like very esoteric and differs from place to place. And, you know, there's a reason people spend so long in school and the success rate is so low.
And the experience of working with familiar judges
Yeah.
and local courts and knowing the ins and outs.
How hard could it be to program a chatbot to just do all that?
Yeah. Well, this next woman basically had a claim against an insurance company that was settled with her human lawyer. But then her chatbot had other ideas. And it convinced her to file numerous appeals, which resulted in her being countersued for $300,000.
Great job, lady.
Here's WGN.
A federal lawsuit filed by life insurance company Nippon claims OpenAI's chatbot acted as a lawyer and convinced a woman to fire her human attorney. Nippon says it settled a long-term disability lawsuit with an Illinois woman 2 years ago. Graciela De La Torre signed a full release, and the case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled. However, last year, De La Torre sought to reopen the case. When her attorney told her the settlement was final, Nippon says she turned to ChatGPT. The company claims the chatbot helped De La Torre draft filings to try to undo her settlement, which she filed pro se, meaning without a lawyer. A judge denied the effort. Following the judge's decision, De La Torre filed a new case, flooding the docket with dozens of filings generated with ChatGPT's help. Responding to the mishap cost Nippon nearly $300,000, according to the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Well, Nippon should have just used ChatGPT to respond to ChatGPT.
Yeah, this could still be going on. They could just be racking up legal fees.
Like it's stupid to try to use ChatGPT for what the lady's trying to do, but the lady's totally in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you paying your white shoe law firm like $1,000 an hour?
Yeah.
When all you really got to do is be like, "Excuse me, Your Honor, the case was already. She can't do this. The case was settled."
Yeah.
Wow, your lawyers are kind of fleecing you here, Nippon.
Yeah. It should just be like their side should just be a pop-up that asks if there's anything they can assist with.
Yeah.
Doop, doop, doop. Hello. What are you looking for today?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Boodle-doo-doo-doo. Anyways, finally today, is this maybe, possibly, the beginning of the end for the prediction market apps like Polymarket and Kalshi?
Please, God.
No, probably
Make it
not.
go away. Oh, fuck.
But it is one step closer to at least getting these apps regulated in the same way as gambling apps, which they are, because this is gambling.
Yeah.
Here's NBC News with a ruling out of Ohio. An Ohio federal judge on Monday said she's obligated to avoid absurdity and ruled that Kalshi's prediction markets in sports amount to acts of gambling, which should come under state regulations. Kalshi, a New York-based predictive market where users can put money down to receive payouts on everything from athletics to politics and world events, had asked the court for an injunction against the Ohio Casino Control Commission. The regulatory body wants to stop Kalshi from operating as an unlicensed sportsbook that is facilitating bookmaking in Ohio.
Yeah, they're literally doing that. Kalshi said its sports offerings should be treated as federally regulated swaps, a type of contract often found in financial investing. U.S. District Judge Sarah Morrison disagreed. Swaps are, quote, understood as a transaction involving financial instruments and measures that traditionally and directly affect commodity prices, she wrote. Currency exchange rates, the weather, and energy costs all do that. The number of points scored in the Huskies-Bobcats game does not, Morrison added. This conclusion is further supported by the court's obligation to avoid absurdity. The judge continued. Ohio argues that absurd results would flow from defining a swap to include a sports event contract. The court agrees. A representative for Kalshi said the company will appeal the Ohio decision. The company won a decision recently in Tennessee that blocked Nashville from forcing Kalshi to adhere to state regulations. We respectfully disagree with the court's decision, which splits from a decision from federal court in Tennessee just a few weeks ago, and will promptly seek an appeal, a Kalshi spokesperson said. Yeah, it's weird that the federal government is like, let them play, and then governments that are not the federal government are like, this is absurd that you are even making this comparison.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. But it'll probably go to an appeal court, and then a Trump-friendly judge will be like, well, you see, the problem is Trump's son is on the advisory board, and then we got Erica Kirk on another advisory board, and then we got Trump's granddaughter at the advisory board of Erewhon, and as you can see, it's a little bit difficult for us to rein in any of this corruption. So you'll just have to wait until the inevitable happens.
If the Democrats ever get the White House back, they need to give Lena Khan a Gundam.
Yeah. She needs to march to Silicon Valley in a fucking Gundam and just kick buildings over. That's it. All right, that's all for this video. We will be back with more, of course. But in the meantime, please like the video, click the like button. It really does help. We appreciate it so much. Leave a comment, reply to a comment, and hey, we have new merch. Go to internettodaymerch.com, pick up a shirt, pick up a poster, do whatever you want. Just make sure you interact with the video in some way. We have other stuff popping over for you to watch right over here. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
The war in Iran cost you, the American taxpayer, more than $11 billion in just the first week alone. It's also displaced more than 3 million people, and we're now facing the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. And while the pace of Iran's retaliatory attacks, they may have been slowing down, they definitely haven't stopped, and the havoc they've just continued to wreak across the Middle East, it is proof that Donald Trump is lying to you. Right? Because while he claimed at this campaign-style rally in Kentucky yesterday that the war, it's already been won, saying that the US and Israel have virtually destroyed Iran, we're now almost 2 weeks into this whole thing, and it remains entirely unclear when it's going to end. And the reason I say Trump's lying rather than he's pushing a falsehood he believes in is because it seems like he knows what he's saying just isn't true. In the same speech, he acknowledged that the mission, whatever it is, remains incomplete, and the war, it has to go on.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right?
And with all that, just today, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, Bahrain, and Oman, they've all reported drones or missiles flying over their territory, with at least some making it through and hitting their target. Kuwait, for example, said that its international airport had been damaged, and in Iraq, an Italian military base was hit, with luckily Italy's foreign minister saying that military personnel at the base had sheltered in a bunker and avoided any injuries. But the same couldn't be said everywhere. Roughly 30 miles off the coast of Iraq, 2 oil tankers were set on fire, possibly by boats carrying explosives, and a person got killed, and another 38 people had to be rescued at sea. And with that, you had Iran claiming responsibility for attacking one of the tankers, with the Revolutionary Guards claiming in a statement that the ship had disobeyed and ignored warnings. And while the statement didn't mention the other ship, Iraqi officials apparently suspect that Iran was behind the attack on the other one as well. And then, actually, Iran's believed to have been behind yet another attack targeting a container ship about 35 nautical miles off of the coast of the UAE, as well as 3 attacks on cargo ships yesterday in or near the Strait of Hormuz, although, again, Iran only claimed responsibility for one of those strikes. But in any case the number of commercial ships that have been damaged over the course of the war, it's now up to 19. And thanks to the latest attacks, Iraqi authorities suspended all oil terminal operations at Oman, closed a key oil export terminal for what it said were security reasons. With that coming a day after the country's biggest port was struck by drones for the second time, and that last one, it stands out because Oman has some of the few ports that it's actually possible to keep shipping oil from, since they're located beyond the Strait of Hormuz. Though another big standout is that Bahrain's energy facilities may be some of the hardest hit, with an alleged Iranian strike today hitting fuel tanks in the north of the country. And that's as the country's interior ministry said that it arrested 4 people for allegedly spying for Iran, while a 5th person remained at large. And you have the ministry accusing all 5 of having used high-resolution photography equipment to photograph and record coordinates of vital and important locations on behalf of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. You also had a British legal aid group reporting today that at least 21 people have been charged in the UAE for taking videos and photos of missile strikes. And that, notably, coming after the country's public prosecutor said last week that taking or sharing videos that document strikes and damage is illegal if it incites panic among the public, spreads false news, or harms public security and order. Right, and then talking about back here in the States, if you live in California, it's being said that you could be Iran's next target, or at least that's according to a newly surfaced warning issued by the FBI to law enforcement agencies in the state last month. With that saying that Iran, quote, aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles launched from a sea vessel against the state in the event that the US conducted strikes against Iran, with a notice adding, we have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators. Now with that, I want to note that this was reportedly unverified intelligence, and there's no evidence as of now that this is actually a realistic threat. And as far as what others are saying, you had Trump telling reporters yesterday that he wasn't worried about Iran ramping up its retaliation to include strikes on US soil. And then you had California Governor Gavin Newsom saying that he was in constant coordination with security and intelligence officials to monitor potential threats to California, including those tied to the conflict in the Middle East, and adding, while we are not aware of any imminent threats at this time, we remain prepared for any emergency in our state. Though with this, while Iran may have a very hard time attacking the United States directly with weapons, it's already done it over the internet, because there's apparently been a major cyber attack targeting a major US-based manufacturer of medical equipment, which told its roughly 56,000 employees Wednesday to disconnect from all networks and avoid turning on company-issued devices. Though it also said that it had no indication of ransomware or malware and believed that the incident is contained. But also with this, you have experts saying that this could be part of a troubling trend in cyber warfare, with the head of a cyber threat intelligence firm telling the Wall Street Journal, rather than targeting hospitals or frontline healthcare providers directly, adversaries may focus on critical suppliers and logistics providers where disruption can cascade across the entire healthcare system. Well, the company didn't say who it believed was behind the attack. You had a hacker group appearing to take responsibility for for it, calling it retaliation for what's widely believed to have been a U.S. missile strike on an Iranian elementary school that killed 175 people. Right, that's now reportedly the conclusion of even the Pentagon's own preliminary inquiry. And you had the Washington Post reporting today that it wasn't a case of the missile missing its target. Instead, the school was actually on the target list, but it may have been mistaken for a military site, which has now raised even more questions about whether AI was part of the decision-making process. Because AI has continued to be used to wage this war, including for target selection. And with that, you had U.S. Central Command reporting today that it had struck approximately 6,000 targets in Iran since the war began. With that, including 60 Iranian ships and 30 mine layers, which has been a major focus since we started seeing reports that Iran may have started mining the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM's also been posting clips today suggesting that it's targeting Iranian aircraft as well as mobile missile launchers on land. And with whatever they're hitting, we're also seeing reports that some of Iran's most significant cultural sites have sustained significant damage. And then with all this, on the Israeli side, you have the military claiming today that it struck a site where Iran advanced critical capabilities and nuclear weapons. They also claim to have taken out members of Iran's internal security forces in the capital with drones. But then inside Iran, notably, residents have reportedly said that security forces have been increasing their presence on the streets, trying to show that they're still in control. And that's as the reported death toll in the country has remained relatively steady, with Iran's representative to the UN claiming today at least 1,348 civilians have been killed since the war began. Though maybe the most shocking number coming out today may have been reports from the UN Refugee Agency saying that up to 3.2 million people have been internally displaced inside Iran as a result of the ongoing conflict, with most of them fleeing from Tehran and other major urban areas towards the north of the country and rural areas to seek safety. But then notably, with all this, if you factor in what's happening in Lebanon, the total number of displaced people, it may easily be as many as 4 million people. With the latest count, but the number of people displaced by Israel's attacks on that country at around 800,000. But that number also may continue to rise as Israel has yet again ramped up its assault on the country, which has so far reportedly killed at least 680 people, including around 100 children. And in recent days, for example, Israeli forces have struck 2 hotels in or near Beirut, including one that was housing displaced families and another where Israel claimed Iranian operatives were meeting. Also yesterday, it hit an apartment building in the central part of the city, and today, airstrikes hit several cars along the seaside, reportedly covering the sidewalk in bloodied sand and setting off panic in the neighborhood. And that strike reportedly killing at least 8 people, injuring dozens more, and most of them displaced people. And then you also had the Israeli military issuing an evacuation order for central Beirut, the first warning for an area within the city limits since the war began. And then within an hour, the Israeli military began carrying out a new wave of strikes on Beirut, with Israeli officials saying the strikes were targeting infrastructure belonging to Hezbollah. And with that, what Israel's doing in Lebanon isn't the only thing being overshadowed by the war with Iran. Right? There's also the matter of what it's doing in Palestinian territories. Because officials in Gaza, they claim Israel continues to violate the ceasefire on a daily basis. And in fact, just a few days ago, Israeli air and tank strikes killed 6 Palestinians there. Also, more recently, you had a fire breaking out after a strike at 10 sheltering displaced Palestinians in a refugee camp. And then in the West Bank, we've continued to see an uptick in settler violence. With the key thing being that once the war started, Israel's military blocked many West Bank roads and largely shut down crossings into Israel. And you now have Palestinians in remote villages saying the roadblocks, they've left them increasingly exposed to this violence, which has reportedly killed at least 5 Palestinians in the West Bank since the war began, with a 6th man dying after inhaling tear gas fired during an attack, according to an Israeli rights group. And last night, settlers reportedly graffitied and attempted to set fire to a mosque. And then also, while you have violence spreading across the region, the broader fallout is spreading across the globe. The cost of oil has surged again after Iran attacked 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, with prices jumping to just over $100 a barrel this morning before dropping slightly. And then as a result, you had benchmark indexes in both Asia and the US falling by around 1% in reaction. Gas prices have also gone up for the 12th straight day since the war started, with the national average jumping to $3.60 a gallon, which is 20% up since the initial US-Israeli strikes. But also diesel prices have increased even more quickly, rising nearly 30% in the last 2 weeks, with the current average being $4.86 as of today. And really what we're seeing now, it could be just the beginning. I mean, gas prices usually trail oil prices by about a few days. So the crude oil cost bumps that we're seeing, they might not even be really reflected at the pump yet. And that's just with me talking about the United States. Things are also going to be a lot worse in Asia and Europe, which rely more heavily on oil and natural gas from the Middle East. It's even gotten so bad that you had Denmark's energy minister literally telling citizens to cut back on energy use and stop driving unless it was totally necessary. And we're seeing all of this even after the International Energy Agency announced the largest ever release of oil stock in history, with 32 of the world's biggest economies agreeing to release 400 million barrels of oil from their strategic reserves. We have experts saying that the market reaction that we're seeing, it shows that the historic release didn't reassure traders. It actually had the opposite effect. It instead just highlighted how far away we probably are from seeing the Strait of Hormuz open and fully operational again. One of the biggest things is it looks like they're right to be worried. Even though the release of strategic reserves will help, it's a temporary measure that's really not going to do much if the war continues to drag on. With Trump constantly moving the goalposts, talking out of both sides of his mouth, you have investors clearly thinking that this is how things are going to move forward. And in fact, with all this, in its monthly report, the IEA said that global supplies are expected to decrease by 8 million barrels a day. That's almost half of the roughly 20 million barrels that moved through the Strait each day before the war broke out. I cannot overstate how major this is. The IEA says that the war has caused the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. And you have experts saying that even if the war were to end and shipments were to resume, it could be months before the energy market goes back to normal. But then it's also not just the energy market. Experts say that we'll see prices rising in other areas as well, especially with food prices. Right, for one, when oil prices go up, it becomes expensive to transport goods and services, which causes producers to increase their prices for consumers already struggling with high gas costs at a time when affordability is a huge issue. And then some businesses, they might not be able to keep up at all. I mean, you have experts saying that many of these businesses, they're already operating on thin margins because they're absorbing most of the cost of Trump's tariffs. So basically, they're getting double fucked by Trump. And instead of lowering prices, the anti-war peace ticket president who ran on affordability, he started a war that's going to increase prices, further hurting American consumers and producers who are already struggling to make ends meet because of his tariffs. But then wait, it gets worse. The affordability crisis that this war is already causing, it goes way beyond oil, because the Strait of Hormuz is also a key shipping route for many other products, and the blockade has almost entirely halted container ship traffic in the waterway. And then on top of that, temporary closures and disruptions at multiple major international airports in the region have paused nearly 1/5 of global air freight capacity, which has caused disruptions to shipments of consumer electronics, pharmaceuticals, and precious metals. But again, where experts say that Americans can see the biggest impact is with food prices and agriculture. Because in addition to oil, the Strait is also a key passage for fertilizer, which is absolutely essential for global agriculture, with Bloomberg also describing this as a fertilizer crisis like never before. In that, it creates a chain reaction of events. When fertilizer supply is low, it makes farming costs higher and reduces crop yield, two factors that both mean higher food prices for consumers at the grocery store. But then that is only further exacerbated by the rising energy crisis. Energy is a huge input into the food supply chain. It's used for everything: farm machinery, producing fertilizers, transportation, processing. So when prices increase for almost every aspect of food production, those are also passed off to the consumer in food prices. But despite all of these very serious concerns, Trump has just continued to downplay the pending oil crisis while also making contradictory statements. Well, speaking at an event in Ohio, you had Trump claiming, "I figured we'd be hit a little bit, but we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while. Prices are coming down very substantially. Oil will be coming down." But then, literally at the same event, he also told local reporters that he would tap into the U.S.'s emergency petroleum reserves, with him then later confirming the release of 172 million barrels. But then also, after that, we saw Trump trying out an entirely different strategy, and he tried to paint high prices as a good thing, writing on Truth Social. The United States is the largest oil producer in the world by far, so when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. Now, a big thing, yes, it is true that the United States is a huge oil producer, but it also imports a ton of other oil products. And what's more, studies have shown that high oil costs only benefit wealthy oil producers and their shareholders, while American consumers, regular people, end up footing the bill for higher prices. And also, while you have Trump and his administration painting the oil prices as a short-term pain for long-term gain in Iran, it's still unclear how short-term this will actually be. Or like we've talked about, Trump has repeatedly contradicted himself about when this war will end. And even if he did decide to end the war soon, doing so at this point also carries huge risks. But as you have places like the Wall Street Journal explaining, he's basically in too deep now. Because if any remnants of Iran's regime, they're left in place, we would essentially just grant Tehran control over the world's energy markets while also sacrificing security in the region that could make another more devastating regional war likely. For the Strait of Hormuz, it's an incredibly valuable piece of leverage for Iran, one that they're not going to give up easily. And in fact, today you had Iran's new supreme leader reportedly vowing to keep fighting while explicitly threatening to continue weaponizing the Strait in his first statement since assuming power. Though the reason I say reportedly there is because he didn't actually read the statement himself. And notably, he hasn't actually been seen publicly at all since his appointment, which has then raised speculation that he was killed or injured in the strikes that killed many of his family members. But still, in this statement, you reportedly had the new leader saying Iran would not refrain from avenging the blood of its martyrs and claiming that he will activate new fronts if the war continues, while also threatening to destroy enemy assets to the same extent that Iran's assets have been destroyed. With him then reportedly going on to promise that he will continue to use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage. And so with all this, you have experts saying at this point, even if the US did end its war, there's no guarantee that Iran would reopen the Strait quickly, and there's also a risk that it'll continue targeting boats or launching strikes at oil-rich Gulf nations, with one explaining, if the regime holds on, even a rump regime, what is to stop its missiles and drones from threatening tankers through the Strait of Hormuz and the energy infrastructure of America's Gulf allies at the time of their choosing? And currently, there are signs that the regime's holding on, with Reuters reporting that US intelligence indicates that Iran's leadership is still largely intact and it's not at risk of collapse anytime soon. And you have analysts saying that
Save time creating content and generate a high-quality clone of your voice with ElevenLabs. Change the way you record podcasts, voiceovers, and branded content with the #1 AI-powered voice generating technology. Stop searching for the perfect voice and stop wasting time re-recording take after take. Try ElevenLabs for free and start elevating your content today.
And you have analysts saying that if the US wanted to forcefully reopen the strait, it would likely require a ground operation that could escalate and is all but guaranteed to result in higher casualties. And so basically, at this point, Trump has made everything worse by going to war with Iran for no discernible reason. And right now, it looks like even if he does pull out and declare victory, he's fucked everything up so much that future conflicts, including ones that the US will get drawn into, they're almost inevitable. But for now, that is where we are, and I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions to just this full fucking dumpster fire. And then there's more we gotta dive into in just a minute, but first, let me take a minute to thank a sponsor and say, I've messed around with this game enough to understand why it has a dedicated fan base. Like, for example, I like the strategy, team building, satisfying, and the champion collecting. It's weirdly addictive. And today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, is actually celebrating their 7th anniversary this month, and their then versus now glow up, kind of wild. The game's evolved a ton. The visuals are sharper, animation smoother, and the whole experience feels more polished. Like, go look at the old graphics and apparently what I looked like years ago to now. I like to think that we're both elevating our game. Why not praise myself in a sponsor push? But also, in honor of Raid's 7 years, new players can get a $200 anniversary package for free, but it's exclusive for downloading via my link or scanning the QR code. This includes legendary Krokmar, the Devourer instantly, plus the epic Galapo, the Recluse at level 25, and as you level up, additional exclusive rewards. Plus, there's Pelops the Victor. Just hit my link, download, and use code SUPERVICTORY to get them. And if you don't like Pelops, you can choose another legendary by picking one promo code out of 6 that you see on the screen. For the vets out there, you can still get Pelops via the Classic Fusion event, plus a 7-day chain of daily rewards waiting for you. But then, diving right back into the news, while Trump is waging a literal war overseas, we're seeing another MAGA civil war play out. And it is over the Iran war. And the fault lines that we're seeing with this, they're kind of the same that we've seen for the other splits with the MAGA base, whether it be with the Epstein files, the Kirk assassination, or the rise of Nick Fuentes. Which to some degree is to say you have Ben Shapiro and his people on one side, and then pretty much everyone else on the other.
This is not the United States' war. This war is not being waged on behalf of American national security objectives to make the United States safer or richer. This war is not actually even about weapons of mass destruction, nukes, chembio. No, this war is waged purely because Israel wanted it to be waged.
If Tucker wants to claim that Donald J. Trump is a tool of the Jews, which is clearly what he wants to say, he should just say it.
You also had Megyn Kelly coming out to make an argument similar to Tucker's, calling out Ben directly.
No one should have to die for a foreign country. I don't think those 4 service members died for the United States. I think they died for Iran or for Israel. Our government's job is not to look out for Iran or for Israel. It's to look out for us. And this feels very much to me like it is clearly Israel's war. Mark Levin wanted it. It's his war. Ben Shapiro, Lindsey Graham, Miriam Adelson. That's obvious.
To that, you had Ben countering that Donald Trump is responsible for the war, not Israel or the Jews, and arguing that if you have a problem with the war, you have a problem with Trump.
She is such a coward. She is such an unbelievable coward. You don't like President Trump? You don't like what he's saying? Just say his name, you coward. You unbelievable coward. Tucker and Megyn both. Unbelievable cowardice. Say his name. You won't. You won't.
And then he claimed that her cowardice extends beyond just her hesitation to call out Trump directly. It's her entire politics.
Some might point out that Megyn's bravery stops precisely where the clicks end. That she was pro-trans until the clicks turned against it. That she was pro-Israel until the clicks turned against it. That she was pro-Erica Kirk until the clicks turned against it, at which point she went totally silent on Candace Owens, slandering the widow of her supposed friend.
The next W had been going after Piers Morgan, giving this explanation for why he stopped going on Pierce's show.
He kept bringing on actual Nazis and the Nazi adjacent, and then treated them all too often as voices worthy of a large audience. Listen, it's Pierce's choice who he decides to have on his show and how he decides to conduct the kind of clown car battle royale that he does on a show every night. And it's my choice not to join that circus. We all make our choices and we all live with them.
He then played several clips from Pierce's show as examples featuring Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Norm Finkelstein, among others. So then in response to that, you had Pierce pointing out that he's also hosted numerous people who are pro-Israel and anti-Iran, including pundits from the Daily Wire. Plus, you had people saying for the interviews that Ben cherry-picked, he left out the parts where Pierce pushes back against his interviewees, even calling Fuentes a Nazi. And with all this, you had Pierce claiming that ever since he started criticizing the Israeli government, Ben hasn't even politely replied to his occasional text messages.
Ben Shapiro
Shapiro used to make a mockery of deplatforming when the person being deplatformed was Ben Shapiro. But his uncompromising views on Israel and America's military and political support for Israel have turned him into a cancel culture vulture with the very same sneering intolerance he used to loathe. If you disagree with him, you're a Nazi, he says. The difference between me and you, Ben, is that I'm heavily criticized by both sides because I listen to both sides, and very often I criticize both sides too, without fear or favor. You're only criticized by one side because you choose to air only one side, and you choose to ignore or even silence the other. I'm a journalist. You are a propagandist. Oh, and facts don't care about your feelings.
And then reacting to all of this, you had Megyn Kelly piling on the fuck Ben train.
It's very sad to me as somebody who's known Ben forever and helped.
Ooh, we got that reggaeton. Today, we're going to be making beats you guys send me, okay? So let's go.
Chinchi, please do my beat.
Bro, is that your homework? Yo, I see
Ben forever and helped make Ben 100%. He became a star on my show, The Kelly File. I'm very sorry to see this happen. Truly, how many people must be culled from the conservative movement in order to make Ben happy?
Right now, with all this, you've got both sides of this debate claiming to represent the majority of the conservative movement, painting the other as actually the minority. But at least on Iran, the truth ends up being kind of complicated and very interesting. Because before the war started, Republican support for a hypothetical strike on Iran, it was pretty weak, with like 40% in favor, 25% opposed, and 35% unsure. But then after Trump just started the war, support for the actual strikes ballooned all the way up to 85% of Republicans. And you had 3/4 saying that they believe that Iran has posed an imminent military threat to the United States, and 6 in 10 saying that the president's actions are making the US safer. So basically, once Trump went from I'm the pro-peace candidate, no more wars, and he went full neocon, all that so-called isolationist anti-war sentiment, it just fucking evaporated and his supporters fell in line. Though interestingly, the party still split about 50-50 over putting boots on the ground. At least for now, until he does it, and then you see just everyone change their minds. And so it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens there, also how this MAGA civil war continues.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, Donald Trump just made an announcement today. I'm going to put that clip right here on the screen.
If you get this, your midterms, and they know it. For 2 reasons. Number one, they won't be able to cheat. And number 2, the people are demanding it. Every time I go out, Save America, sir, Save America Act. We want the Save America Act, sir. That's all they talk about. They don't talk about housing. They don't talk about anything. That's what they talk about. And if you send it up there, you're going to win the midterms at levels that you can't even believe. And you're going to win every election for a long time until somebody really screws things up, and hopefully that won't happen.
So he's talking about the SAVE Act here, and it's clearly important enough to him that he's introducing this idea that nothing else should pass if the SAVE Act doesn't pass, that no other legislation should go through, that his sole priority is going to be the SAVE Act. And so clearly he has a vested interest in making sure that this thing goes forward. And so the big question here is why? Why is the SAVE Act so important to him that he's willing to sacrifice every other legislative opportunity he has in deference to this one single piece of legislation?
Yeah, look, you and I have talked about this before. Donald Trump doesn't care about anything other than power. Like, people who think Donald Trump cares about immigration or cares about tariffs or cares about, the Middle East. No, what he cares about is power. And he views those issues, demagoguing on immigration, starting wars in the Middle East, setting tariffs. Like, he views all of these as exercises of power. Like, when he was setting the tariffs, remember how he loved the idea of raising them and lowering them because it made him seem powerful.
Yeah.
Well, for him, the ultimate threat to that power are free and fair elections. That's why he was against them in 2020. It's the reason why he was against them, frankly, in 2024 and in 2016. When it didn't matter to the outcome, he still attacked the elections. This is not a surprise to me that he is elevating the SAVE Act above everything else in his administration, above everything else that Republicans in Congress cares about, because he doesn't care about them. He just cares about holding power, and he understands that left to their own devices, Mike Johnson is not going to be able to drag 218 Republicans across the finish line. And it may be that John Thune can't even drag 51 Republicans across the finish line. So Donald Trump is prioritizing voter suppression and election subversion and ballot seizures above everything else.
So talk to me about what the SAVE Act is, because the way that Trump frames it is this is just voter ID, which is an issue that Republicans actually enjoy a majority of support on. But is that what the SAVE Act is?
Do you realize how much money this will save us?
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app with Base 44. Look.
Act is.
Yeah, so the SAVE Act is kind of a moving target. So the original SAVE Act was a bill dropped by the House of Representatives, Republicans, in 2024, in the final year of the Biden administration. And that version of the SAVE Act, which was true in 2024 and 2025, really focused on voter registration. What it did is it imposed a proof of citizenship requirement that would disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans, including a very large number, a disproportionate number of married women who had changed their last names. That's the reason why we all first heard about the SAVE Act last spring, because all of a sudden the Republicans were behind this big voter suppression bill, and it was so targeted at married women who changed their last names that it kind of became DOA. But it didn't involve photo ID. It had no ID requirements at all in it. Then what happened is in January of this year, a new version of it got launched, the Save America Act, that added a few things. Number one, it added a photo ID requirement, but it kept the proof of citizenship law, so it still had all of those bad provisions, but it added a voter ID provision, as well as several other provisions like making election officials potentially criminally liable for mistakes they might make, right? So it turned this bill into something much more dangerous. And then most recently, starting with the State of the Union, Donald Trump has further evolved it and insisting now that there is a weak version of the Save America Act, which is what I just described, and presumably a strong version, the one that he advocates, which would, among other things, ban all mail-in voting, except for people who are overseas or in the military or sick, and most recently would target the trans community. Now, targeting the trans community, not related to voting, by the way, just like literally just targeting the trans community. So he is trying to
basically
just
like a culture war issue to throw to his base so that they'll glom onto this even harder.
That's right. And so he is targeting this towards his base. But here's the problem, Brian. He can't get this passed in Congress. I mean, the Republican in the House, Republicans in the House barely passed what he refers to as the watered down version. But John Thune said as recently as today, he said again that there are not the votes for any of these versions in the U.S. Senate, given the filibuster, and there is not support among Republicans in the Senate to do away with or bend the filibuster. So as a result, it is not going to pass. But what Donald Trump is doing is he is setting this up, I will not sign any other legislation, as a showdown to give himself a permission structure to do something much, much worse.
And I want you to actually talk about what that is. But first, you have been covering this relentlessly, more than any other news outlet, on Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet you founded to focus on everything voting elections. For everybody who's watching right now, if you are not yet subscribed to Democracy Docket, please do yourself a favor and subscribe. I'm going to put the link on this screen and also in the post description. This is the premier outlet when it comes to any and all things democracy related. So again, if you're not yet signed up, please help elevate Mark's voice and support his news outlet by subscribing. So Mark, what is that scenario that you're describing?
So look, Donald Trump goes through a progression. He starts with rhetoric, then the rhetoric gets really extreme. Then it goes to the courts, and then there's violence, okay? Think about 2020. He started with the rhetoric around voting before the election. That rhetoric got really extreme after the election. Then we went to court. He got humiliated in court, and then what happened on January 6th was violence. Well, we've seen that with immigration, right? There was rhetoric around immigration, then that rhetoric got really bad. Then there were fights in courts over, for example, in your home state of California, about whether or not the military could be deployed. And then finally, what did we see in Minneapolis? The use of paramilitary to engage in violence. So, what we're going through right now is the rhetoric phase into the court phase. And what's going to happen is he's going to issue an executive order, and people should bookmark this video. Even better than that, people need to subscribe to this channel, and they need to hit the bell to be alerted when there's new content. Because what I'm about to say is going to come true, and you're going to want to get alerts when that new content comes out, along with all of the other content that Brian and I do on a daily basis on things that the legacy media is not telling you about when it comes to the threats to free and fair elections. But what's going to happen is he's then going to issue an executive order that is going to try to implement all of the things that he has said that he wants the House and Senate to do. But he doesn't have the authority to do it. So it's going to get challenged in court immediately My law firm and I will challenge it, others will, and we will win. And then what that is laddering up to is the permission structure for him to then incite, whether it's people on the inside of government or outside of government, the seizure of ballot boxes, the surrounding of polling locations. Remember what Steve Bannon said? He wanted ICE surrounding polling locations. And of course, we know what that what that ultimately leads to.
So I guess the obvious question that raises, especially on behalf of everybody who's watching right now, is do we have the defenses here to be able to push back against that? Like, Trump is going to try and do this anyway. In fact, he's come out and just said outright that even if Congress doesn't get it passed, he's going to get it passed unilaterally. Do we have the defenses to make sure that he cannot manifest this into reality by fiat?
It was the stock market that started history's greatest wave of wealth creation. From factory workers in Detroit to farmers in Omaha, anyone could own a piece of the great American companies. But today, our most innovative companies are staying private longer, which means everyday Americans are missing out. Until now. Introducing VCX, the public ticker for private tech.
Hour, and by then it's almost too imminent. This is Democracy Watch. Mark, you and I have spoken at length about the imminent attacks that Donald Trump keeps promising as it relates to the election. And oftentimes I ask you, is there anything that we can do in advance before just waiting for him to do these things at the 11th hour? And by then it's almost too late to go to the courts and go to judges and ask them to stop things if it's going to interfere in the election that's happening right then and there. But we may have a solution here in a new lawsuit that was just put forward. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, the Democratic National Committee sought records from the various parts of the federal government that, either control the military, in the case of the Department of Defense, or, these sort of paramilitary operations, Department of Homeland Security, as well as the Department of Justice itself, for records related to any plan or planning to have armed agents or armed soldiers or anyone at the polls, at ballot boxes or at election facilities. And they've been stonewalled. I mean, the fact is the Department of Justice and the DHS and DOD and all of them, they're not saying, hey, we don't have any records like that because, we're not going to do that. They're just sort of blowing off these requests. So the DNC, they filed a lawsuit in federal court to say, hey, Your Honor, we're entitled to these records under the open records laws. And, the question I have that I'm sure many of you are asking is, if the Department of Defense is not planning on sending the military, if DHS is not planning on sending armed paramilitary, if the Department of Justice is not planning for there to be, militarized or paramilitarized or people, at the polls or at voting locations, why don't they just write back and say there are no records? Right? Why haven't they just said no records to see here? They haven't done that. They've just stonewalled.
So if the DNC's lawsuit is successful and they're able to have any records, any communications disclosed that would show the Trump administration is indeed planning to send ICE agents or military into polling places, specifically polling places in purple districts or blue cities within red states or whatever it may be, with that information, then would it be possible to put forward some lawsuit to prevent it from happening now that it's kind of like there's some conspiracy underway? Like, then would you finally have some standing to block this before it happens?
Yeah, I think you put your finger on the legal term, standing, right? Like, at that point, it goes from being a hypothetical.
Right,
to a concrete.
Which has been the problem all along, because I've asked you in previous videos, like, we know this is going to happen, but you can't sue if there's no standing, if nothing is actually happening. You have to wait until Election Day, but by Election Day, you're already screwed because then the voter suppression is happening.
Make a move with Hostinger Self. Bring your idea to life with Hostinger Horizons AI. You just need to describe it. Sign up for a 1-year plan and get up to 2 months for free. Create powerful websites and apps without writing a single line of code. and go live with one click. Now, for less than half of a streaming subscription. Try for 30 days without risk. Join more than 4 million people going online with Hostinger. Turn one day into day one with AI website and app creation. Go for it at Hostinger.com.
Is happening.
Yeah, so there are these dual legal doctrines that are kind of where a lot of our voting litigation takes place between these two narrow doctrines. One is ripeness, which is that there has to actually be a thing happening. You can't say, I think something may happen or sometime in the future may happen. It has to be concrete enough to be ripe. And then on the other side, you have mootness, which is, well, it already happened, so there's nothing you could do about it because it's over, right? So like I always, joke that, as far as states are concerned, our lawsuits are always either too early or too late, right? Like it's either too early that it's not ripe, or it's too late and there's nothing to do about it.
Right.
And so what the DNC very strategically is doing here is they're saying, look, we want the records that shows where the planning is. Like, is there any planning? Is there any, even laying the groundwork to planning, right? So like getting the records to show whether this is even under consideration, and if so, what that timeline might look like, will allow then litigators, whether at the DNC or not at the DNC, but allow folks to then kind of like say, okay, here is that narrow time frame where, according to the planning going on or the instructions or whatever, it's going to start on this date. And so we can go into court in advance of that date, or the DNC or other lawyers can go in advance of that date, and say, but it's concrete enough to block.
I want to note for everybody who's watching right now, before we get into the next question here, that as far as protecting our elections are concerned, there is no better fighter, no better champion for protecting democracy, for fighting the Republicans' voter suppression schemes in court than Mark and his team. So a small step that everybody can take right now to support his work is to sign up for Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet that focuses on everything voting in elections that he founded. It's where I read and learned about this exact lawsuit. So if you are at all interested in democracy, in voting rights, in elections, the best outlet you can subscribe to right now is Democracy Docket. So that link is right here on the screen. It's also in the post description of this video. Mark, as this lawsuit moves forward, what do you anticipate might be any issues with this whole process?
Look, I think that the Department of Justice that's defending this is going to stonewall and stonewall and stonewall. And so their plan is to not give an inch. And the question is whether the courts will rule on this lawsuit fast enough. I don't think there's any question, at least in my mind, that the DNC is right on the law. In other words, they are entitled to the records. But the question is, how long does that judicial process take? Because every day that goes by, it is one day closer to the election.
Right.
And if, as you just think about the mootness, ripeness around this entire lawsuit, right? Like, it may not become legally moot, but at some point, getting the information that the Department of Justice or DHS or other branches of the government are going to, put armed soldiers or armed National Guardsmen or armed, federal agents at ballot drop boxes or early vote sites. At some point, like the lawsuit itself takes so long that you wind up seeing the people at the sites before you get the records that they say they're planning it. So urgency around this lawsuit is going to be really important. And that's going to boil down to a couple of things. A, how quickly does the DNC press this? I suspect they're going to try to push this on a really fast track. How effectively is the Department of Justice at slow walking this? And that, I think is going to be questioned. And then the judges, whether the judge, some of these judges are really starting to hold the DOJ's feet to the fire.
Any pizza, any toppings, for just $9.99? Sheesh, I'm getting all kinds of ideas.
I am alive.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not even trying to pretend that they're not trying to support the vote, that's what they're trying to do. It's very obvious. It's very obvious that they're trying to put your question. We don't want you to vote. We don't want you to vote. We don't want you to vote. party will stop them, We're gonna rock them and drop them and stop them from voting. Voter suppression is a real thing, and it doesn't feel like anybody's listening or seeing this thing. They're not actually seeking it. Problem, they don't see the thing that's happening and seeing things fall down. They don't see that it's a problem now. You need to change it. Need to bring this up. Probably the promise you this is dangerous. You need to change it. Say something, say something, say something, say something, say something. Ah, this is dangerous. We need to really change this. But it feels like people are not changing. Listen, cause they don't see the voter suppression. That's why the prejudice has been trying to tell them saying that, well, the elections are rigged. So let me go and fix them. Yeah, we're rigged before, but I will go and fix them. Let me go ahead and fix them. Yeah, he'll fix them. Yeah, he'll fix them. Yeah, he'll rig them. Yes, he'll rig them. That's what he's doing. Trying to change it. Trying to really change the system. Nobody's listening. Nobody's seeing the pattern. Cause they're turning a blind eye and they don't wanna learn or don't wanna look at the thing that's going on. They don't wanna see what's going on. They really don't see what's going on. How come you don't see what's going on? Democrats don't seem to know the law, so it feels like they're just letting it not go on and they're not getting involved. They don't wanna say anything at all. Hey, left to speak up, huh? Hey, Democrats, get up, huh? Grow a spine and not and don't let your coffee walk over, bro. Cause I'm telling you, this is not something you want. I guess. Oh, hold up. What are we gonna do? Are you gonna stand up? Are you gonna stand up? Are you gonna stand up? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna stand up? Are we gonna stand up? Are we gonna stand up? Set a standard. Let's have a standard. I hope you understand this. Voter suppression is not something we should stand for. We should stand up and say that this is wrong. The military shouldn't be going to the polls. And guess what? That is wrong. Please stop it. Please stop it. Do not let that happen. I want you to step in this because you don't want to let this happen. Because if you just let it happen, then we wouldn't have any representation. We want some representation. So I think that we should try to speak up, do something. Don't let this tyrant change everything. I promise you don't want that. You don't want that. We want representation. But if you don't stand up for the nation, then be complacent. We'll make everything fall down and burn up. I don't want you to do that. You don't want it to burn up. So I want you to know this. That you need to know something. Okay, what am I saying? Oh, you really need to do something. Girl spine, be a man, be a man. I understand the left side is really kind of feminine, but I understand what this. We need some more masculine men on the left side. Gavin Newsom, you're doing alright. Hey, this is what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say. Ooh, I hope that we really change. Ooh, Donald Trump is trying to change. Take away your right to vote, and he's trying to suppress the vote for the minorities and other people that he doesn't like. He doesn't want to let them vote, in fact. So he's trying to take away the votes. Yeah, he's trying to choke out the votes. He's trying to make it harder for people to vote. He's trying to change the system and he's trying to get us used to that. And I hope that you can change this and I hope that you can see this. But if we're not doing anything, well, to be Jesus, he'll just change the system and make it harder for people to vote. Voter suppression is a problem and nobody seems to know, because they're turning the blind eye to it because they see the war going on and they see everything going up. Yeah, I understand that tariffs made everything more expensive, and I understand the war is also making things hard to focus on. You don't want to think about the world falling apart and burning up, but it's not Armageddon. Yeah, but if we just stop, then it'll be that stuff. We don't want that. We need to actually step into this. We have to be proactive. I'm not saying this right, but this is what I'm trying to say. Be proactive about the things you want. Okay, be proactive about the stuff you want. If you aren't proactive, then you take no action. And not taking action means that you lack in the ability to vote because you didn't take any action. So be proactive. Yes, please be proactive. Oh, why would I be proactive? I don't want to do that. I would rather be lazy and just ignore this, in fact, because it's so much easier than not to be engaged. There's too much going on hustle. Take some time for yourself. If you need to turn your phone off, then turn it off yourself and take a moment and breathe, and so you can actually see, so you can actually be prepared to come back and fight this thing. Cause you need to be prepared. You need to be ready to fight. If you're not ready to fight, then you will lose this fight because you'll be emotionally tired and exhausted. You'll have a lot of exhaustion because you're emotionally exhausted. I don't want you to feel emotionally exhausted, so step away from this for a moment so you can actually take a moment to breathe. If you don't have a moment to breathe, you'll have a lot of exhaustion because you didn't take a moment to breathe. And I understand this is what Trump depends on, doing a lot of stuff and making you feel exhausted. But I hope that you can understand that's part of his method. So you need to recuperate, and so you can step away from this for a moment so you can breathe and relax. Take a deep breath and breathe out. Breathe and relax. Breathe in. Breathe out. Yes, I'm saying some things that everybody does now, but it actually helps to actually slow down for a moment, because you need to know now you don't need to be stressed out. If you are too stressed out, you won't be able to focus on the political environment now. Your voting rights is something that you need to pay attention to. Otherwise, you won't have those rights. It is true. You need to do what you need to. Be engaged in this truly. It's hard to do, but you can do it. I promise you can do it.
Okay.
Right. Have created the most advanced AI soldier.
Created
the most advanced AI soldier.
Now streaming on Disney+.
Stop.
Billy started to hold the DOJ speech. Billy started to hold others continue to give them the presumption of good faith, the presumption of regularity. Continue to give them the presumption of good faith, the presumption of regularity. And what that means is that when the Department of Justice lawyer shows up and says, "Look, Your Honor, and
we
this
got
is like an open
1,000
record
things going on.
This can't take priority.
And this is like an
over
open records.
all of the
This
other 1,000
can't
things
take
we got going
priority
on.
over.
Is the judge
all
going
of
to
the
be
other
like,
1,000
okay,
things we
well,
got
if
going
DOJ
on?
says they have 1,000 things
Is the judge
going
going
on,
to be like,
then
okay, well, if
there must have
DOJ
1,000
says they have
things
1,000
going
things
on?
going on, then
Will the
there
judge
must have
look at
1,000
that
things
and
going
say,
on? Or
look, you guys have been
will the judge
jerking us
look at that
around
and say,
on
look,
delay,
you guys have been
delay,
jerking us
in
around
everything.
on
And so
delay,
no,
delay,
right,
and delay in everything. And so, no, I'm not going to let this issue, which involves the DNC's right to have this information in advance of the election, I'm not going to let this drag on. So, a lot of that is just up to the individual judge and how quickly they press things, how much the DNC presses, how hard the DOJ pushes back.
Is there a world where, even if there's not necessarily immediate standing, that the courts can recognize like the extenuating circumstances at play here and take into account the atmospherics of this thing, listening to what Republicans have said, recognizing the proclivity that the Republicans have for voter suppression, hearing Donald Trump's public comments, and use those in their decision of whether to rule in favor of the DNC, but also to move with more urgency than they normally would?
Yeah, look, you put your finger on it. This is the great frustration that I think I and many people have about the courts beyond the merits, like beyond like not liking decisions from the Supreme Court or from other courts. Just like the big concern we have is that there is a kind of procedural blindness that has taken over our courts, in which they are like, we are the courts and we look at the pleadings in front of us and we have blinders on. And that just doesn't work in this era. Like, judges need to open their eyes and just acknowledge the thing that is just as plain as day. I mean, Brian, in many respects, it's the same critique I have of the legacy media, right? It's like the legacy media is reporting that, the Board of Peace has had setbacks as a result of the Iran war. And it's like, the Board of Peace was like a bunch of bullshit to begin with.
Right.
It was never actually about peace.
Right.
But like, there's a part of the legacy media that just like has to treat this like on its own terms. It's all on the up.
It's like, it's kayfabe. Like in wrestling, like professional wrestling, which I grew up watching, it is a collective suspension of disbelief where we all pretend like the thing that we all know is make-believe isn't, so that we can enjoy the show. And that's what so many of these people are doing. Like everybody knows the Board of Peace is complete bullshit, but they confer a degree of legitimacy, unearned legitimacy, onto this thing just because it's born out of, you know, a political zeitgeist that normally is legitimate. It's the presumption of regularity, and here, and you know, it's the same thing. It's presumption of regularity that isn't earned and isn't deserved.
Right, and so that's exactly right, and so courts engage in that same thing, that same suspension, right? They assume that what is described in the documents that are filed with them are the world. And they begin by assuming that if the Department of Justice describes the world a certain way, that is probably the most accurate description of the world. You know, it reminds me of episodes you and I did back when there were troops in Los Angeles. And, you know, the courts, at least some of them, were like, well, Donald Trump says that there is an emergency that requires the National Guard. And like you were like pointing out, like anyone who's in LA knows that is not true. Like, no matter what words the Department of Justice uses, it's just not true. And yet some of the judges were like, well, the Department of Justice says that this is necessary, so therefore it must be necessary. And like democracy is not going to survive that.
Right. And look, I think that the major issue is that not enough people are actually calling that out. Too many people are playing that game and suspending their disbelief in deference to this administration, whether it, you know, be it for access or just because that's how it is. It's just the power of stasis. You don't do that, and Democracy Docket doesn't do that. So again, for anybody looking to elevate media that actually deserves to be elevated, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description. And of course, to see more episodes of Democracy Watch, the link to subscribe to this channel is on the screen as well. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch. Fiat.
Yeah, so I think people need to pay really close attention to this. The fact that I am warning about this doesn't mean he's going to succeed. In fact, part of the reason why I'm warning about it is because I want to make sure he doesn't succeed. So look, you know, my team and I, we're going to fight like hell in court. You know, the Democracy Docket team, the news outlet I founded, we're going to publish about this. We're going to call this out. You every day do videos several times a day that point out to people how Donald Trump moves through this progression. And I can promise everyone, if you're subscribed to this channel, that Brian and I will continue to do this important work of keeping you informed. So like you can start, in addition to subscribing, by sharing this video on social media and with your friends, because it's really important to grow independent media and to grow it so that it can bring the truth and sound the alarm early. And I think if we do that, Brian, we're going to be okay. But here's the thing. If instead, all of you watching this, you go turn on CBS News and then you go read the Washington Post and you know, and then you think, well, you know, you understand what's going on, then I'm not so sure. So like I am in a race, not just to make sure that Donald Trump is not able to pull this off in court. I'm pretty confident I got that covered. But I also need to make sure, and Brian, you better than anyone know how important it is to make sure that he does not win the information war around this. He's going to have his base and they're going to be all with him. But if all you're getting by way of news is legacy media, you're going to be desensitized to this. You're going to think this is normalized. I mean, after you watch this video, you know, before you watch the next one in this series, and make sure you're watching in this series, like go to your random newspaper or news site, and it's going to all be presented in a very sort of normalized way. Well, if, you know, Donald Trump said this. What do you mean Donald Trump said this? What he's saying is batshit crazy and dangerous for democracy, but they're not calling it out. But Brian does. And I do alongside. So like this video and share it with a friend, as well as subscribe to this channel.
I'm going to put the link to both my channel so that you can see more episodes of Democracy Watch, and also the Democracy Docket link so that you can subscribe to that news outlet right here on the screen. If you're not yet subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to both and make sure that you can elevate our voices in this ecosystem. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.
Crashed the county election office's website, with then a Dallas County judge ordering polls to stay open 2 extra hours. But with some voters having walked miles to their original locations only to be redirected, there were real questions about whether that was actually enough.
Every vote must be counted. Every voice must be heard. The voter suppression in my home county and in Congresswoman Crockett's home county underscores the gravity of this moment.
There was a lot of confusion today. We're about to file a lawsuit to keep the voting polls open. We were able to keep the polls open, but I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised.
Or with both candidates there acknowledging the problem, and it was a very real failure that affected real voters regardless of who they were there to support. And so with all this, you have Crockett's camp saying that they were preparing a lawsuit, especially after a conflicting court directive complicated the extended hours.
The Supreme Court also said that they are to separate any votes out that came in after 7 p.m.
Crockett has also since conceded, citing the need for party unity heading into the midterms. And so, with all of this, there is the question, okay, why did yesterday matter? What does it tell us? Well, first up, voter suppression's alive and well. Or we saw it in Texas yesterday, and we'll probably see it again across the country between redrawn maps, mail-in ballot fights, disappearing polling locations, and unrealistic wait times. And while mistakes happen, and we need to be aware of that, they don't happen this often and this consistently in the same direction. This is seeming more like a feature, not a glitch. Then second up, primary turnout, it's a preview of midterm energy. But if excitement and party loyalty is strong enough to bring people out in the primaries, those same voters will likely show up in November and in 2028. And third up, Trump's influence is still the dominant variable on the Republican side. But in Texas, anything short of an official endorsement meant that voters defaulted to whoever aligned with the president most closely on the issues that mattered most to them. Dan Crenshaw, the only House Republican in Texas running for re-election without Trump's endorsement and someone known for occasionally breaking from the party, he may have lost a seat because of it. And then finally, looking at the situation and exit polls, affordability appears to be cutting through everything. It was a major factor in Texas yesterday, and it's not the only place where that issue is driving votes. And so both parties, they're going to have to reckon with a lot, but that also includes the fact that voters care about what they can afford more than almost anything else. Right? And while you had people out there voting for the futures they want to see, and other news, Mamdani, he's continuing his sprint for change. New York City just took its first step toward free universal childcare, and if it works, it could save families tens of thousands of dollars a year. It's part of the reason it's being called the most ambitious expansion of the social safety net in decades. But also, there are real questions about whether the money is actually there to see it through. And so with that, to get into the specifics, Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Governor Kathy Hochul, they announced that starting this fall, 4 communities across the city will launch a new program called 2K, offering 2,000 free childcare slots for 2-year-olds. The seats will be distributed across Upper Manhattan, the Bronx, Southeast Queens, and Central and Eastern Brooklyn, covering every borough except Staten Island. Now, is it somehow Pete Davidson's fault? We'll get there, because this is the first phase of Mamdani's broader plan to extend the city's existing 3K and pre-K programs to reach younger kids. You also have Hochul's office saying that around 12,000 seats will be available across all 5 boroughs by fall of 2027, with the goal of eventually reaching every 2-year-old in the city. Advocates predict about 55,000 kids will use the program once it's fully established, and once fully implemented, the program will provide free childcare to any family who needs it, regardless of zip code, income, or immigration status. Now, as far as why these specific neighborhoods, you had officials saying that the initial communities were chosen based on economic need, demand for childcare, and existing access gaps. But also, a major factor was whether local providers had the capacity and infrastructure to actually launch the program sustainably. These selected areas, they're mostly low income, but they include pockets of gentrification, and that's intentional. And officials explained 2 reasons. First, some of the highest need neighborhoods didn't have enough existing childcare infrastructure to support an early rollout. And second, they want to make clear from the start that this is universal childcare for all families, not just a poverty program. But with all this, you had Staten Island leaders slamming their exclusion, or with one city council member arguing that universal childcare must mean universal, though you had city officials pushing back, saying that Staten Island will be included next year and the state had to be selective in the early stages. So then here is where it really gets complicated. The money. Hochul has committed $73 million for the first year and around $425 million for the second. But beyond that, there isn't a plan yet. Now, she did imply that she's committed to long-term funding, but she hasn't provided specifics. And then even if the money does come through, there are worries that there are structural problems. Childcare workers are low wages and retention's brutal. Also, scaling this up means negotiating with multiple unions over pay, finding and training a massive number of new employees, and building out centers that don't exist yet. But this is going to be very interesting and important to watch because the need here is undeniable. And if you're a parent, you know this, but for everyone else, childcare costs have outpaced inflation nationwide. And in New York specifically, center-based care for infants and toddlers, it averages $26,000 a year, which is a 43% increase since 2019. Free 2K, it genuinely has the potential to be life-changing, not just for the parents' wallets, but for workforce participation, early childhood development, and economic mobility across the city. But, and it's that big old but, potential and execution are 2 very different things. The biggest social safety net expansion in decades, it doesn't mean anything if it runs out of funding in year 3. And so these next couple of years, it's going to tell us whether this is a very real shift or a promising pilot that just couldn't scale. And then there's even more we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank a sponsor and say, remember when online scams could mostly be avoided by just not clicking on shady links or opening the wrong email? Because, well, yay, it's 2026 and you have criminals now using AI to clone people's voices from snippets of audio to trick banks and financial institutions into authorizing unauthorized unauthorized payments and direct debits. This is the type of scam that, turns something as personal as your voice into a tool for fraud, making it harder for consumers to spot deception and potentially leading to financial loss, even when you think you're talking to a trusted contact. In a world where scammers can mimic your voice and bypass traditional trust cues, it makes me thankful that NordVPN's encrypted connections and threat blocking tools, it helps keep your sensitive communications and data safe from interception and manipulation. All your internet traffic, it stays encrypted, meaning that your data is yours, even if the website that you're using is held together with duct tape and hope. Plus, NordVPN has a strict no logs policy. They're not tracking you, storing you, or selling you. They protect you, period. I'm personally protected, and you should be too. Right now, you can get an exclusive discount on a 2-year plan, plus 4 extra months free when you use my link. And it's all risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Just scan the code or go to nordvpn.com/Phil. That's nordvpn.com/Phil. But then, diving right back.
Feeling so much safer now that Donald Trump bombed an elementary school. Thank God he killed over 50 little girls at an elementary school. We're all so much safer for it. The world is a better place for it. I'm already seeing so many comments saying, he needed to do this, guys. He needed to do this. He needed to bomb this elementary school. He needed to kill all those little kids. That was necessary. Just like we needed to kill little kids in Gaza, right? And this is why I get so frustrated when I see Trump's fan base, a bunch of pro-life people, fighting so hard to protect fetuses. But when stuff like this happens, they'll say, it's a really hard decision, but it had to happen. But they don't say that about abortions. They say it about brown kids, though. I'm just ready to hear all the excuses about why this was so necessary and how we needed to bomb that elementary school with little kids in it.
The death toll in the Israeli attack on the Iranian elementary school has officially gone up. The number of casualties from the Shajarat Tayyibah girls' elementary school in Iran has gone up to 108 little girls killed. Iranian parents had just dropped their kids off for class that morning when the US began dropping bombs on Iran. Their children had just entered the school. Imagine dropping your children off somewhere that you thought that they could be safe, only for them to be minutes later buried under rubble and dying. The little girls at this school were between the ages of 7 and 12. 7 and 12 years old. These were literal children. There were 170 children in that building when they were attacked. 170, and now 108 of them are confirmed dead. That is 64% of them. 64% of the girls in that school are dead. The rest are buried under rubble. This is the largest mass casualty of the US-Israel attacks on Iran, and they are children. And at this point, God knows how many more bodies they're going to pull out from under the rubble.
From that, I want to end today's show with a quick congratulations and one more piece of news we need to dive into. But starting with the congratulations, congrats to Ethan K, SeatGeek's latest weekly winner, who just scored $500 in tickets and is going to watch the Bears versus Packers in the fall. And for the rest of y'all, that's right, SeatGeek is still giving away $500 in tickets every week, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. Right? You could be the next winner and snag $500 towards seeing your favorite artist, sporting event, play, just really whatever. There's like over 70,000 events to choose from. And all you got to do is add code DeFranco to your SeatGeek app profile for a chance at the weekly $500 prize, no purchase necessary. But then with that said, the final thing that we need to talk about today, the final piece of news, is we need to talk about how the House Oversight Committee just held a closed-door deposition with Richard Kahn, Epstein's former accountant. Because we are again seeing both sides play the same spin game and create their own talking points about what was said and what we should believe. Now, Kahn, he's the executor of Epstein's estate, though he claims that he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes, that he never observed any abuse or trafficking or heard any complaints, but that he still regrets he may have unknowingly assisted Epstein in any way. And according to the representatives there, he answered every single question and named some of the clients who contributed to Epstein's absurd wealth, claiming that Les Wexner, Leon Black, Steven Sinofsky, Glenn Dubin, and the Rothschild family all paid Epstein millions. Leaders in the committee also said that Kahn admitted to impersonating Epstein in communications with banks and facilitating a fake marriage between two women in Epstein's orbit. And when it comes to other powerful people who may have had ties to Epstein's wealth, you had Representative Suha Subramaniam telling MS Now.
We asked him about whether there are any financial transactions between Epstein and other heads of state or politicians, and he did mention the name Ehud Barak. I remember Virginia Giuffre had mentioned that a former Israeli prime minister, which Ehud Barak is, had violently raped her.
But you also have Republicans focusing on who Kahn didn't implicate, especially Trump, again trying to use the deposition to clear the president's name, with Chairman James Comer saying,
Kahn testified under oath that because the Democrats asked this question, that he had never seen any type of transaction to Trump or anyone in his family. That makes the fifth witness now that's testified under oath that they've never seen any involvement by Donald Trump.
But as you can imagine, Democrats didn't see it the same way, with them pushing back on a ton of Kahn's deposition. They're saying they flat out don't believe that Epstein's accountant and estate executor was clueless about his crimes. With Robert Garcia, the committee's Democrat lead, writing that Jeffrey Epstein's massive sex trafficking ring would not have been possible without the consistent payments and services of his longtime accountant, Richard Kahn. It's not credible that he had no knowledge of Epstein's activities, and his testimony today only raises more questions. And when it comes to Trump, you had Garcia specifically saying that Kahn confirmed that Epstein spoke about Trump a lot, with Representative Subramaniam adding that the committee asked Kahn about the settlement program that he's running for the estate, and
he was proud of this program he set up, but a lot of the survivors have said that it has not been distributed fairly, that they've been trying to minimize the amount of distributions. We asked about specifically if one of Trump's accusers had actually gotten a settlement, and he did confirm that.
And so once again, because this deposition didn't happen live in front of the public, we have two different narratives about what was said and what should come next, especially with Trump. But also, when it comes to the public's feelings on Trump's role in the files, well, someone in DC, they made their thoughts very, very public, because a statue depicting Trump and Epstein in the Titanic King of the World pose just went up at the National Mall. And it had a plaque with it saying, the tragic love story between Jack and Rose was built on luxurious travel, raucous parties, and secret nude sketches. This monument honors the bond between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, a friendship seemingly built on luxurious travel, raucous parties, and secret nude sketches. With that being put up by a group of anonymous artists who got a permit allowing it to be up in the mall through Friday. Though you also had the White House trying to deride it as a stunt by wealthy Democrat donors. And as far as what Trump thinks, well, he's repeatedly claimed that the files are a hoax, but also that they exonerate him. But then also with this, you have a ton of people now focusing on his choice to attack one of the Republicans who has led the charge in exposing the files, right? Thomas Massie. As we've all seen, Epstein's one of the issues that Massie's bucked Trump on over the last year. And so yesterday you had Trump going to his Kentucky district and railing against him and endorsing his opponent.
He is the worst person. He's disrespecting our country.
That winning feeling you love? Bring it everywhere you go with the Hollywood Casino app. Your next big thrill is just a tap away. New players get 300 bonus spins, plus up to 500 back in casino credits. Hollywood Casino. Download and play today.
Our country. He votes against everything. He's got one thing going. He went to a good college. But I know a lot of stupid people that went to a good college. We got to get rid of this loser. This guy is bad. He's disloyal to the Republican Party. He's disloyal to the people of Kentucky. And most importantly, he is disloyal to the United States of America.
With Trump then bringing Massey's opponent on the stage to speak, which, just as a quick aside, on the note of people who joined Trump on stage in Kentucky, you also had Jake Paul. With Jake, who, by the way, you own a fucking company that makes deodorant. How are you sweating that much? But that is besides the point. Jake, he spoke at the rally, and Trump even encouraged him to step into politics.
I'm going to make a prediction that you will be, in the not too distant future, running for political office. Okay? And you have my complete and total endorsement, okay?
Also, Trump and Jake Paul made a video where they were dancing together. You know, the kind of fun, chill vibes that totally make sense when we're at war with another country and prices are going through the fucking roof. But anyway, a big thing with all this is that it looks like Trump's crusade against Massey, it might be working. Because according to CBS News, conservative groups are spending over $5 million to try to oust Massey in the primary. And while Massey, he's gotten some support from outside groups, it's not nearly as much as the money that's going up against him. And that's a huge deal because this is likely his toughest primary yet. Now that said, for his part, you had Massey shooting back at Trump by claiming that the president's team was paying to bus people to that rally, arguing that Trump's voters in his district also support my work on the Epstein files, reining in spending, ending forever wars, draining the swamp, and food freedom. And while yes, there's gonna be polling from then till the primary, we won't know how this is gonna play out until May. And yeah, in the meantime, I'll just keep thinking to myself, what a weird time we live in. Donald Trump just endorsed Jake Paul, and I'm rooting for fucking Thomas Massey to win an election. I don't know if this is the worst timeline, but it's definitely the dumbest. But it's where we're gonna end today's Thursday Philip DeFranco show dive into the news. Though, if you're somehow not sick of my face and voice yet, there is more for you to watch. Whether it be that brand new Crashing Out episode between Alex Perlman and I, or that In Good Faith deep dive we did with Jon Favreau this week. On YouTube, you can click or tab right here, or of course, I just always have links in the description wherever I post. The main thing, thank you for watching. I love your faces, and I'll see you right back here next time.
It was the stock market that started history's greatest wave of wealth creation. From factory workers in Detroit to farmers in Omaha, anyone could own a piece of the great American companies. But today, our most innovative companies are staying private longer, which means everyday Americans are missing out. Until now. Introducing VCX, the public ticker for private tech.